So there's a lot of FNAF games out there. There is also a lot of FNAF VHS tapes out there. Today I've got you some FNAF games and some VHS tapes to fall asleep to. There's going to be different tiers to how scary these games are, and that will be in the timestamps down below. And as the video goes, there's going to be scarier stuff. So the longer you watch, the more scary things get. Anyways, with that, sit back, relax, and go to sleep. Or try to at least. So let's get into our first game of the video. This is called Birthday at Freddy's. The title screen alone is enough to make anyone shit their pants. Why is he? Oh, she's moving. Freddy! We get a look at Freddy, who is just aura farming, I can't lie, in this opening sequence. But yeah, this game is something that I've actually never experienced in a FNAF game, so without further ado, let's just hop straight into it. Right, so we begin this game with a tutorial, and thankfully the game goes out of its way to tell us what we need to do, because if I hadn't got this tutorial, I would be so confused. But anyways, this is the main gist of the game. We have a flashlight and a computer. And we also have a generator placed inside the room we are in. What we're going to have to do is go onto our PC and start to look for animatronics. Wait, look, you say? Well, the thing about this place is it doesn't have operating cameras. Instead of having a camera system, it has a motion detecting system. And you can't even see the motion. All you can hear is the... No, that's not the stage. Animatronics, quote unquote, because I don't even know what this sounds like. So this place went, okay, we have a night guard, but let's just not give him cameras. Who on earth decided this was a good idea? But enough of that aside, we have a computer system that is basically just an audio system. Kind of like FNAF 6 in a way. In the office, there's two doors, left to right, and then behind us is where I mentioned before is the generator. Everything seems fine, and then phone guy calls us. He tells us that, hey, you know, welcome to this new place, yada yada yada, don't f this up. No, he literally says this. This is quoted.
Yeah, basically don't let Freddy and friends into the office and you should be fine. I don't know if you're covered under warranty yet, but if you f this up, expect a letter in the mail.
Alright, bet. So let's just try not to do that. I'm gonna try my best here because I don't know what I'm doing. My first instinct was, okay, let's go around the room and see what we got. So the generator is very strange. You have to crank this thing, and by the way, it takes you 5 days to crank the generator to its full power. If I'm gonna be real, this is gonna be a massive problem for this run, but for now, it's not too bad. We have the generator and then the animatronics, which for night one, we only get to see Chica and Bonnie. Chica and Bonnie are a little strange. They only appear at our left and right door. Using the camera system doesn't really do much, as the audio we're hearing isn't actually their audio, or it could be, but I'm pretty sure it's Freddy's audio, but I'll get into that a tad bit later. Right now, all we have is Chica and Bonnie, and these two animatronics will appear at our doorways. The thing is, everything sounds simple, however, with the generator and how slow this thing is to wind, it actually makes the night really tense. I have nothing right now, bro. I have nothing. Oh! Oh! Bro, I gotta wind. I did end up seeing Chica at the very end of night one, and oh my, she looks terrifying. Thankfully though, as I saw Chica and closed the door, that was pretty much it for our night one. We then go straight into our first 8-bit level, and why does the purple guy have one tooth? I'm not gonna even ask or really question why this is, but he also has this really huge hand, as if he's like begging for money. But anyways, we get to go around the pizzeria and check on all the animatronics, which look pretty lifeless, and for some reason there's actually someone in the place. If we go toward the right of the 8-bit level, we find a green person who tells us go ahead and fix the people, William. What's this leading me to?
William, here are the parts.
Hey, what? I also find the voice of the green person hilarious. But anyways, after we go ahead and place the gears inside the animatronics, this begins night 2. In this night, we have a new mechanic, being the cupcake. The cupcake is a piece of shit. as it's going to drain our power. The cupcake is deployed by Chica and will end up going toward the vent system inside our office. If we see the cupcake in the vent, we have to flash until it goes away. And if we don't do this, then our power is basically gone. With this new addition, night 2 is a tad bit more difficult. Can't lie, as soon as my power began to run out, I got pretty stressed because Chica and Bonnie are a lot more aggressive and they actually will appear multiple times in this night. So I can't just sit back and, fiddle with my thumbs, because if I do that, well, Bonnie's gonna come toward me and eat me. So let's not do that. The best thing to do is, in my opinion, go toward the generator and keep that wounded as much as possible. We are yet to deal with any other animatronic beside Chica and Bonnie, and if the cupcake is in the office, it makes a really loud sound, which means I know where it is. You can't hide from me, you piece of shit. But yeah, by using and I guess abusing the generator, I got through night 2 quite nicely. And this begins night 3. And I'm gonna be honest, this one's gonna be quite different. We now have to say hi to Freddy, who is the big bad in this game. How Freddy works is in the camera system, or I should say the sound system because there's no cameras, we can hear a sound. This sound is belonging to Freddy, who will make a weird distorted sound through the camera. If we hear the sound, we have to listen, and this will push him back toward the front stage. If Freddy gets too close toward the office, we are in danger, because if Freddy gets in the office, it's game over. And finally, everything is starting to click. We have Freddy in the cameras, Chica and Bonnie to our left and right, and the cupcake in the vent system. In all honesty, night 3 is a pain because having to deal with Freddy and also keep track of my power was really something. And by the end of the night, by the 3 to 6 AM mark, my power was literally running out whilst I was having animatronics in either hallway. Miraculously, I did not perish. I somehow kept the power on and managed to fend Chica and Bonnie off. But Freddy was a different story because when Freddy appeared in the camera, I was confused. I just kept my red dot on Freddy and this calmed him down. It was pretty close. My power was stuck at about 1 to 2 bars, which was pretty much at the verge of it completely going off. So we now get another post-night section with, again, the green guy and the purple guy. We again go grab the gear parts, go toward the animatronic, fix them up, and that's pretty much it. There's not really much more to say than that.
Fix it, William. I'm dealing with your shit.
What, the guy just said, I'm tired of dealing with this shit. However, this time, the green guy is kind of tweaking out. He kind of starts swearing at William, I believe. And it's like, whoa, buddy, chill out, man. I don't know what the f I'm doing, but just chill out, man. Just chill. But yeah, we move then into night 4, which is, again, gonna be extremely tough and is the exact same as night 3. However, the animatronics are a little bit more aggressive. So basically, I would have to keep tabs on my power at all times, and this was one of the most important parts of the whole night. Keeping that power high as much as I can allowed me to fend off Chica and Bonnie. With the monitor, I just kept a red dot on Freddy. I didn't really know exactly if I was doing the right thing, but it seemed to work. And when the cupcake went into my office, I just flashed it with my light. Overall, night 4 was pretty jolly, and I would beat it pretty comfortably and move into night 5. Come on, wind, just wind. If we get through this, we get through this. If we don't, we don't. If we get through this, we get through this. If we don't... Oh, you f*** me, man. Come on. Ding, ding, ding. I'm the winner. I am the winner. That's right. I am the winner. Let's go. Night 5. Oh, yeah, we're guys, but somehow I managed to stay afloat and get through night 4. And then we would move into night 5, the final night in the game. Moving into night 5, we strangely do not get a post-night section, so I assume the story of the green person and the purple guy is no more. But anyways, night 5 is the toughest night in the game, as every single animatronic is out to get us. I will have to be extremely conservative with my power, as if I start using too much, I will not be able to fend off Bonnie and Chica. Freddy is also super aggressive and will go from room to room, meaning I have to keep that red dot on him the whole night. I also realized that I've been actually using the computer wrong. When I'm not using the computer, I can turn it off and this will actually save me more power. For some reason, I always kept the computer on, even when I was going to crank the generator. But now I will turn it off and be able to save a little bit more power. I know I'm pretty stingy with it, but I have to be. Night 5 was pretty stressful, and saying that, I would make it to 5 AM on my first attempt. However, I made a pretty huge error. I was cranking the generator and assuming that nothing was in my doors. However, as I was doing this, Bonnie had already been at the door, so when I went back to go check on Bonnie, it was clearly too late. Oh my god, he's like right here, man. Good. Oh my f***ing days! Oh my, 4 AM, bro. Oh. I then had a break off this game, and a couple days later I would return to go through night 5. This time though, something felt right. I just had a feeling I would beat it. Honestly, this run was quite smooth. I managed to keep Freddy quite far from the office, and Bonnie and Chica were pretty predictable as they both appeared pretty much right after the other. I always kept that generator going and managed to turn off my power on the computer whenever I wasn't using it. All things considered, this night was a lot better, and I can't lie, it wasn't too hard to beat. I actually got through it on my first attempt on that day, which was quite an achievement if you ask me. Oh, f***. Yes! Yes! Oh, let's go! That's right. Get that shit. Fuck you, Freddy. Fuck you. I win! I win! After that, we would get the final screen saying the end, and we get to see the crew being Bonnie, Freddy, and Chica. And pretty much that is it for the game. There's no like other sections, or there's a custom night, but I hadn't actually gone ahead and played it. There's no extras, so that's pretty much it for Birthdays at Freddy's. Anyways, with that, let's move into our next game. Alrighty, welcome on to our next game here. This is Project Fredbear Reboot Survival Mode. This game is a unfinished game. It only has a demo state. However, it is still a terrifying experience, and I'm gonna stop yapping. We're gonna hop straight into this absolutely beautiful game. Righty, so we hop into the game, and already this atmosphere alone is giving me the shit. I really love the atmosphere. It feels off-putting, but at the same time, it feels a little bit familiar. I was very confused as I had no idea what I was really doing. I briefly touched this game last year, I believe, and I never made a video on it as I really struggled with the mechanics. However, this time around, I knew a little bit about how the game would play as I already had a little bit of experience. So with that said, I went straight toward the office as this place seemed to be the only place I could actually survive in. Once we got into the office, thankfully I found a flashlight, which would make our lives 10 times easier as now I could actually see what the f I was doing. However, this newfound sense of freedom or safeness was not going to last long, as in no time the animatronics would begin to roam the pizzeria. Dinosaur? Dinosaur. That's dinosaur Bonnie, bro. That's dinosaur Bonnie. What do I do? What the f do I do? I went onto the cameras, genuinely scared out of my mind, and then I began to see Bonnie move in its area. I was like, okay, that's not happening. So I managed to go around to the left side of the office to get a little peek and see where I could find Bonnie. However, I wouldn't find him for a little bit as the animatronics seemed to activate later on in the night, which I am complaining. I'd rather that than them activate earlier. But yeah, I stayed put and just kind of relaxed, and that would all change when I saw Bonnie. When I saw Bonnie, he didn't just run at me. He stood there doing some like dinosaur scream and then began to charge toward me. Whoa! Oh fuck, he's going in the vent. How do I do this? After hearing that, I genuinely almost alt F4'd. I was actually shocked hearing a dinosaur in a FNAF game. But with that said, I closed the door, just barely evading Bonnie's pursuit. However, looking to my left, Freddy began to sneak into my vent, and I was like, what is going on? Freddy does this weird thing where he wraps around, and it's a bit strange. He kind of pauses in the hallway before he gets into the vents. And when Freddy gets into the vent, it's pretty much game over as he can go straight into your office. However, I found a way to actually have Freddy not do this. If you keep opening and closing the door, he actually gets baited, so you can kind of keep Freddy in this one position where he's kind of stuck, and it's pretty funny. But as I was doing this method, I heard Freddy begin to speak, and it seemed that he actually has some form of personality. What's that? So that he just spoke. Freddy just spoke. He's like, oh, I don't deserve this. You can hear him like groaning and wishing that he wasn't in this situation, and I kind of felt bad for my boy. But in all honesty though, he's trying to kill me, so I'm gonna close the door. Tough shit. But with that said, I was actually in a great spot. 4 AM would arrive and I was feeling quite confident. Things were swell. That all changed on the 5 AM mark, as I was almost done with the game, as at this rate I hadn't seen anyone beside Bonnie and Freddy. However, now it was clear that there was other animatronics, and Foxy would gracefully say hello to me. In that I would hear a dinosaur sound, him going into the vent, and me being Foxy's lunch. This all took about 10 seconds to happen, so I was quite put off guard, and yeah. This was the end of my first attempt, so we would move into my second go. This time I did the same thing. I went to the office and managed to kind of get things set up, and I was pretty happy. It was 2 AM and all things were good, until I heard a sound. The sound was accompanied by heavy metal footsteps, and my confusion was starting to grow. That all was very much shown to me as in about 5 seconds, I saw what appeared to be a endoskeleton. What is that? Yeah, I don't know, man. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm kind of tripping, but the endoskeleton seems to have an eye in the middle of its head, and this was very off-putting because which animatronic looks like this in FNAF? I've never seen anything like this. And then quite quickly, the endo would take me out as I wouldn't be able to close the door in time. We then move into attempt 3, and this one was pretty much the same. I tried getting toward the other side of the pizzeria, seeing if I could perhaps camp and, you know, not get jump scared. But I mean, if the office wasn't safe, clearly the other side of the pizzeria wouldn't be any safer. For some reason, in the men's restroom, you can see a poster which has those nights at Fredbear's like picture. The fuck is this? Oh shit. That's a those night at Fredbear's reference. FNAF games referencing FNAF games. It also has it like crossed out, which I'm pretty sure that this is a reference to those night at Fredbear's. I don't know why it's crossed out. If someone knows, please let me know in the comments, because I have no idea at all. But yeah, after this, I would move around the pizzeria, actually exploring, and I also saw Foxy's Pirate Cove, and his eyes were beaming white. Yeah, so I dipped. I was not messing with this thing. It was probably going to murk me. Everything was swell until I stared down the hallway and witnessed 3 animatronics at once. I then just went, okay, let's get to the office. I'm not doing this right now, and it was a good idea. However, Foxy was coming from the other side, and as you well know, he goes from the vents, not the doors. So as I closed the door, Foxy would infiltrate me through the vents, and that was the end of this attempt. Alright, we move on to our next attempt here, and this time around, I was feeling quite confident. I was staring down the hallway, just looking out for anything, and I saw something. Now, I'm not too sure what it even was, but something was there. I then heard some weird sounds starting to approach me, so I just went back toward the office and shut the door. However, just as I went back to close the door, some random entity would put an end to my night. What is that? What is that? What is that? What is that? Bro. It's like a purple Fredbear, and definitely this isn't something that's on the stage, so I have no idea what would have caused this. But yeah, that happened, and we then moved into attempt 5, and yeah, things are not looking too good in this game. This attempt, I went back to my original strat, staying inside the office and, well, trying not to get jump scared. Things were working quite nicely until I managed to get Freddy into my office. I then opened the door and tried to loop Freddy in the vents, thinking it's dead by daylight. However, this Freddy is not mucking around, and I would soon see why. Loki, I'm Hi. Hi. What's good? Oh my gosh. This is Dude, go away. Go away. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm dead. I'm so dead. I'm so dead. I'm so dead. Bro, help me. Help me. Help me. Help me. Oh my god. 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 Oh! At this point, I genuinely did not see me even completing this game, as there was simply too much randomness that this game had. So I decided to put the fries in the bag and absolutely just stop attempting this game. Honestly though, it was a blast to play, and by far had me surprised and shocked with the amount of random stuff that's in this game. But yeah, with that, let's move on to our next game in the video. Alright, so moving on, this game is called Fazbear Night 2. Quaesator Mortis. Yeah, guys, I possibly butchered that, but anyways, this game is a free roam FNAF game, and I've actually played this game before. However, it was about a year and a half ago, and since then, a lot of things have changed. Most importantly, the version I'm playing is a completely new build of the game. In fact, it is now in a new beta state, and well, there's a lot of things that have changed since the last time I've played. So with that, let's hop straight into the game. So we begin night 1, which is titled Here We Are. The objective is quite simple: enter and explore every single room in the pizzeria. Oh, my favorite. I'm going to be coming here a lot, I can't lie actually. If I roll 3 sevens, I reckon I beat the game. So off the bat, I'm going ahead and going to every single place, checking out all the beautiful stuff to see, and already I can tell that this place looks a lot different to what I remember a year and a half ago when I first played this game. The map is a little bit different in terms of the locations. I mean, already the spawn area is a lot different. I then went up to the animatronics and saw all of them in their glory, and especially this animatronic, which looks extra good in this game. I then went toward the office to check out what I'm dealing with, and yeah, this is not FNAF 2, but I kind of like the new look. But yeah, possibly won't end up going to this joint because I possibly won't be in the office for long, because there's not really any escape areas beside, you know, you getting destroyed by an animatronic. And we explored some new rooms that they added, including a extra office for some reason. There's a kitchen now where the party rooms were, and there's also a storage room. There's actually multiple of these, which was interesting. The Kids Cove is also expanded, so you can see Balloon Boy. I didn't really want to see that, but I did. Oh, yeah, all right. So we got Mangle's little room here, which she... Oh, and Balloon Boy. Oh, look at this guy. Looking puntable than ever. And then we have Mangle, and there's also a way to get toward the back of the front stage, where you can get right up and close to the animatronics. I am not going here. And the last spot is the outside area, which is very unique. I have never seen this in a FNAF 2 remake. All these rooms are nice and dandy, but let's get into the actual gameplay, which I'm sure you're all wanting to hear about. I was just running around, aimlessly checking where to go. And then all of a sudden, I hear a sound and see a door shut. I'm thinking, that wasn't me. Who the f was that? So that's nice. Whoa, 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 whoa. What just happened? Oh, it's the big man himself. It's the big man himself. Bro, what the f... Okay, so the night already began. What is that? What? He's so quick. And with a little bit of investigating skills, in that I meant I walked toward that door and I saw Toy Freddy, who is now missing its eyes and is running around the place like a headless chook. So this is not a good start. I was already contemplating if I should even continue playing because I was already myself. But I took a deep breath and looked toward him, and he suddenly stopped and stared at me. I think Freddy was eyeing me down, seeing if I was a good meal because... I mean, he looks hungry. I just stood there and stared at him. And then, what do you know? He just ran away. I was like, okay, all is well. And that was last time I'd see Freddy. Until I saw him again. Dude, what? Oh, go away. I went too close to him. I went way too close to him, man. And this time, it wasn't how I expected I would see him. Off the bat, this was unexpected. Seeing Toy Freddy act like it was in night 1 was very strange, to say the least. Attempt number 2 was roughly the same. I just made it my mission to check every single room off the bat because I did spend a bunch of time on my first attempt kind of, you know, checking stuff, seeing what's up. But this time I'm like, okay, we're checking every single room and we're getting the f*** out of here. With that mindset in check, this night went a lot better. I went toward the office because I thought I'd be safe here. And we actually can wind the music box in the office, which is pretty insane if you ask me. And I was checking the cameras, you know, just seeing what's up. And then I see Toy Freddy and he begins to move around the place. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm used to this. Nothing to worry about. That is until he made a dart toward the office. I'm not joking. He was on the other side of the pizzeria. And then the next second he was running full speed toward me. I dropped what I was doing and immediately got out of my seat. What is that? That is terrifying. Oh my, Bro, why is he moving like that? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Where did he go? Dude, I don't know where he is. Oh! No! I then tried to look for Freddy, but I could not find him. And it's safe to say, where the f is Freddy? And then all of a sudden, I open the door and then he's there waiting for me. So already Night One has taken me 3 attempts, which is honestly insane. But this 3rd attempt was different. I was ready to go after Freddy. I was not going to let him come toward me. I was going to go toward him. This mindset was actually quite smart because Freddy kind of becomes a little bit iffy when you stare at him. And what happened this attempt is when Freddy ran around, I stared at him and he stood there and did not move for the entire night. So I pretty much just had him there standing like a mannequin. Well, if he ain't gonna move, then I'm gonna stand here and just stare at him because hey, I'm chilling. So Freddy, we can just stare at each other, okay? We can do this all night if we wanted to, but see, I have better things to do on my evening. So if you want, you can just head back straight to where you came from. All right, well, looks like we're just having a staring contest. I see you, Freddy Fazbear. I see you. And as soon as I knew it, I was out of the building unscathed. And with that, we move into night 2, which is called Deja Vu. Now, this night is a little bit different to night 1 in many ways. The first way is the objective, and we now have to go ahead and move 10 boxes outside the pizzeria. These boxes are located just pretty much anywhere, and one thing I will say is grabbing these boxes, it is quite slow. You don't really move quick with the box in your hand, so you're basically grabbing the box and slowly walking outside, which if you don't know, the outside section is the other side of the pizzeria. This is overall going to be quite challenging, as the boxes can be as far as the parts and service room. And not only that, but this night we have a few new animatronics to welcome. The first of these being Toy Chica, who is in her own way a very unique animatronic. She is basically free roam and will only go towards you if you go around the map and interact with one of her cupcakes. These cupcakes act as alarms for Chica, where she will go ahead and check that area. Bro, I'm Alright. Ah! And if you manage to go toward that area and she goes to you, yeah, you're dead. And another thing is Chica is quite strange. She will sometimes lock onto you and sometimes won't even know if you're right next to her. I believe she's blind, or in some case doesn't actually know where you are and will kind of just walk into your pathing. And moving on, we have Mangle, who is very similar to, I guess, Sinister Turmoil if you've ever played that game. She's a free roam animatronic and has a very clear area where she will be looking at. Oh, not Freddy, not Freddy, not Freddy, not... If you go inside this area and she sees you, then you have to run because she's gonna chase after you. Mangle does make the night a little bit more complicated, as with 3 animatronics already running around, it's safe to say we're not gonna be just cruising through this night. And then lastly, we have Balloon Boy, who doesn't actually do much besides just follow the player. I didn't notice Balloon Boy take my flashlight, so I'm honestly confused if maybe the mechanic isn't already working for the animatronic. But enough said, those 3 are the main threats, and I'm gonna keep it a buck. This night was really hard. Trying to grab all these crates and leaving the pizzeria did take so much time, and I would get to about 5 or 6 crates, maybe 7, but I'd get to those amount of crates, and by that point the night has already passed and I've been swarmed by animatronics. So that was very much a massive problem. However, this night is quite strange, as sometimes if you spawn in, the objective can actually change. The other objective I'm saying is the trash bag objective, where you have to collect and put away 13 trash bags. This objective is actually easier than the other one, as you can hold up to 2 bags at a time, and instead of going outside the pizzeria, you simply have to go to one of the many rubbish bins across the, well, building. This is, in my opinion, a lot easier and was by far the objective I would stick to. Bruh. Oh my gosh. Every single time you spawn in, however, it is random which objective you got, so I simply just kept restarting until I would grab the trash bag objective. And once I got the trash bag objective, it was then time to try and actually attempt the challenge. My runs were quite interesting. Majority of them were pretty unsuccessful. Basically, what would happen 90% of the time is I would grab half the trash bags, and then either I would get tracked down by a animatronic, or I would just get hunted by Toy Freddy. All in all, it was pretty brutal. However, I was determined to beat this night. And after a couple of attempts, about 2 hours of gameplay, I would get a pretty good run. I managed to grab all the bags pretty early on, because at this point I knew basically where they all spawned, and it was simply time to survive till 6 AM. I stayed in the office trying to just see where everything was, but after the last attempt where Toy Freddy attacked me from the office, I thought maybe I should actually run around and hope for the best. So I made the decision to just go around the place and try not to get jump scared. Honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought, as soon as I knew it, it was already 5 AM, and all I had to do was simply exit the pizzeria. So I made a dash for it, trying to ignore all the animatronics and just focusing on the objective at hand. I made it outside, however, Toy Freddy would approach me. Thankfully though, it didn't go toward me, instead it would back off as I managed to scare it. And at 6 AM hit, I would manage to exit this pizzeria and putting an end to this game. This game is in a very early state, and already there's a bunch of really good signs that this game's going to be an absolute blast. I really love Toy Freddy's mechanic, and honestly, he's by far my favorite animatronic in this game. If I'm gonna give some critique, I'd say Toy Chica should be a little bit tuned. Like when the cupcake alerts Chica, I think just let Chica just roam and track the player down instead of having her like kind of not know where you are. But yeah, with that, let's hop into our final game of the video. Okay, so moving on to our last game of the video, the scariest motherfucking game of this video, I've said that twice, is called Banshee. Now, fellas, what is Banshee? Now, what does the word Banshee mean? Well, it's a noun that means this: a female spirit in Gaelic folklore believed to presage by wailing a death in a family. Just pause for a second, that is the meaning of the game. I think it's safe to say we're gonna shit our pants. So we begin this game in what appears to be an ocean. The ocean is vast and doesn't seem to have an end. This is by far the strangest, I would say, opening title sequence I've ever seen for a FNAF fan game. By pressing play, we get a quick rundown on the events of, well, FNAF. The lore is very nicely typed up on our screen, telling us about William and Henry and how they are now really bad enemies, but mainly the events of FNAF 1 to 5. And that begins the game, and oh my, what am I looking at? This is the new Scrap Trap. Whoa, what the what? Sorry, I am staring at it, and it looks genuinely disturbing. The thing I hate about this design and what makes it so terrifying is the level of detail that was put into Scrap Trap. I can see that this is a actual human being, because the original Scrap Trap, and I can't lie, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but this is tenfold a massive improvement to that original design from Scott. But enough of that aside, we are now given the task by Henry Emily to salvage the animatronic, and why am I so excited? This is a terrifying thing to do. We are given a EMF reader, but we have to go ahead and play this audio, which seems to somehow interact with the spirit inside the animatronic. Or here I could just say it just interacts with William, because I can clearly see him a lot. But yeah, this is basically what's causing the animatronic to agitate, and the EMF reader will tell us how agitated it is. And if it gets toward the red, we have to stop the audio immediately, because if we keep playing it, then we will get jump scared. Some other things to look out for is if the audio starts to glitch, this means the spirit is starting to awaken, which means we have to stop. Dude, what? Okay, go down, go down. That's a lot. That's a lot of spirit, man. I gotta lower that. Come on, lower up, lower up. This is not where I want to be, man. Every time we do this, we have to go on our computer and take down notes. This takes about 3 attempts, and after that, we complete the salvage. The salvage was very intense, as I had no idea on what I was meant to do. I just kept to my idea of playing the audio, checking my EMF, and taking notes whenever I could. This method of approach did get me through the salvage, however, there was a lot more questions than answers, I can assure you. We then get sent straight into the night, and wow, this is gonna be very interesting. Firstly, we have a computer system, which does actually allow us to type on our keyboard the commands on the computer in the game. I don't know why I'm mind blown by this, but I seriously really like how they've taken the more modern approach to how a surveillance system would work. I also noticed that on the computer screen on the left monitor, there's a handprint there. I didn't notice this at first. In fact, I've only now noticed this during me actually speaking. But yeah, very interesting stuff, I must say. But anyways, our main goal is to survive. We have a various amount of tasks to complete throughout the night. Now, these tasks do not have to be completed to get through the night. You are not punished by not doing them. The only thing that will happen is you will not grab any money, so you'll be broke. So on the flip side, the survival part is the part I'm gonna focus on, and also the task, because I did a few of them as well. Night 1 only has one animatronic threat, being Scraptrap. Scraptrap will move around the pizzeria, and you can see him on the camera system. Quick note, the commands to go through all of the desired features is for your cameras, you have to type CC. For the task, you just type task 1 and you will be able to do the task. But yeah, you can go through the camera system and Scraptrap will be there and you can easily find where he is. I was still getting used to the game's mechanics, which was very much a task in itself. Oh, hello. Bro, I hate the way he looks. He looks Hey, just check again. Got it. Got my task. Alright, I got one of the tasks done. I got task? Can I speak English? Throughout the night, Scraptrap will appear outside your door, and if this does happen, you have to immediately go and check on Scraptrap. If you do not do this, then you will get jump scared. So as soon as you see that tall motherfucking skeleton at your office, you're required to look at him. Also, looking at the design, he kind of looks like he wants to, you know, be chill with us, but at the same time, yeah, no. We also have to complete tasks which aren't that difficult. The first task is you simply have to find the difference in the 2 different texts on your computer screen. You have to go through each text and see if it's the correct thing, if it's matching. If it's not matching, you have to press N. By going through 8 successful attempts, you will have completed this task and you would move on to the next 3 tasks. Task 2 is just going through documents and you're basically disclosing them. If you actually accept the document, it will be like gone to the company, and by pressing no, it gets wiped. Some of these texts are pretty disturbing. It goes through the bad stuff with Fazbear Entertainment, which is a lot. Most importantly, I don't know, Springtrap, there being something in this back room, stuff like that. Nah, the company, we don't want that going to the public, so that gets wiped. And the last 2 tasks you can do is just, you have to match the text on your screen. The tasks don't sound hard on the surface, but with the imminent threats coming at you at all angles, it does make things very difficult. The last mechanic in the game is a very interesting one. Around the office, you will see papers, and these papers can occasionally change. If this does happen, you are required to close your eyes. By doing this, you get rid of the anomaly, and I assume this is because of the sheer amount of remnant inside the pizzeria, because we have William, we have Charlotte, we have all the anomalies inside of Enid, which is basically all the sister location characters. Basically, this place is swarming with ghosts, which is what I believe is causing this disruption and is why we have to be on our absolute A game. But anyways, with that, that is all the mechanics for night 1. I would actually have a quite solid night 1 experience. In fact, I didn't get jump scared. To do this, I basically just kept checking Scrap Trap occasionally. I used the close my eye mechanic as much as possible, and this got me through night 1, no problems at all. And then night 1 ends, but things aren't over yet. Bro, what? What the f? I know you remember a ghost. I know you remember his house. This house. What's with the amount of, why is it always ocean in this game? There's just ocean this, ocean that. Oh, shit. Bro. Hey, man, I'm sorry, alright? This was unexpected. Seeing this random entity appear and then absolute nothingness was something I was not expecting. We then get a short text to screen type of thing where we do see another ocean. Yeah, this game has something weird with its oceans, and the story it's trying to tell is derived from, I guess, this suffocating feeling. But I'm going to get into that more later. But basically, this is Mike and Evan, I believe, talking it out. And Evan is saying how, Mike, you're not really sad, you're just scared, which is why you're saying this to him. I find this very sad, this whole talk, as if you don't know the FNAF lore, this is brother to brother speaking. But yeah, with that, we move into our night 2, which does give us a new salvage. And yeah, it is Enid, and oh my, this is by far the most disturbing Enid I've ever seen in a FNAF game. Like, bro, like, this is insane. We can even see the other animatronic from Sister Location on Enid. Like, I don't know if this is Funtime Foxy, but we can see a face on its endo. But yeah, going through this with Enid was absolute nightmare fuel, as I was on edge, especially looking up and seeing this menacing character looking back at me. I would get through the salvage quite comfortably, although there were moments where I was very much second guessing if I should stop the audio. But yeah, that puts us straight into night 2, which is now going to be accompanied by 2 animatronics. Alright, second salvage. Who am I salvaging? What the f is that? Bro, I have to salvage that. Oh my god. What the f is that? Enid is an absolute menace, if I'm gonna put it lightly. At any stage throughout the night, Enid can appear in your right doorway. If Enid does this, you have to stop what you're doing and find him. Let's go. Whoa! I found him. Sound. Bro, audio, what the fuck? The reason being is Enid will have traveled somewhere throughout the location, and if you do not find exactly where he is and use the audio prompt, you will get jump scared. This is genuinely terrifying. Having to scroll through the cameras in search for Enid as you just barely get through this section is nightmare fuel. When we do find Enid, we have to type play, and this will get rid of the threat. This mixed with Scrap Trap makes night 2 a lot more difficult. And if I'm going to be real, getting through all the different tasks in this night, especially with all the tasks that I have to do to get my money up, well, things are going to get really crazy. I think getting used to Enid and how his mechanic worked this night was definitely the most challenging aspect. But eventually I would figure out how to actually deal with Enid, which made my experience a lot more smoother. I did have a few game overs with especially Enid being the biggest culprit of the night. But eventually I would get through night 2, and this would allow us to get toward night 3. I also managed to complete 3 tasks throughout the night, which I felt was very good, especially the fact that I knew nothing about this game beforehand. We have to do a new salvage, and this time we have Lefty, who is the new animatronic for this night. Lefty is so massive that you can barely even see its eyes. Getting through this salvage was very intense, as Lefty had a very high amount of spirit within it. And the EMF reader was getting to the red extremely quickly, which meant I had to be on my absolute A game. I would wait patiently and get through all the audio logs, which allowed me to salvage Lefty and would allow us to get into night 3. So with Lefty in the pizzeria, how does this animatronic work? Lefty will remain in cam 8, and you have to basically use the audio to push the animatronic back. Lefty is quite stubborn and will actually not sway from its path. If Lefty gets towards your office, there's nothing you can do to get rid of it. So it's similar to Freddy from FNAF 1, just keep it away as much as possible. However, the audio isn't just used for Lefty, it's also used for Enid. So night 3 is about using both audios and making sure that we have enough time to keep Lefty out of the office. Lefty has 3 stages, and as I said before, if he gets to cam 4, it's pretty much game over, as cam 4 is the office camera. We now have to deal with 3 animatronics, and the Lefty and Enid duo on the cameras was definitely not helping me at all. This night would take me upwards of 40 minutes. Attempts would go by, and I was genuinely questioning if I could even beat this night. But eventually I would just use the audio strictly on Lefty. I would only use the audio on Enid if, well, Enid appeared in my office, and beside that the audio was just used for Lefty. After multiple attempts, I would eventually beat night 3, and we would move into night 4. Before doing this, we have another salvage, and hello, Scrap Baby. This design is quite strange, as I'm getting more of the clown vibe, more so than the circus vibe. I know both could mean the same thing, but this definitely is giving me more of a clown look, and I can't lie, I really like this look. Firstly, you can see in the middle of Circus Baby or Scrap Trap, you can see the, I guess, lure system that it has. And in this game, it's just a massive box, which is very interesting, I must say. And I also like the expressionless look that this thing has. It's a lot different to how Scrap Baby looks in FNAF 6, how it looks more alive, more so than being a, I don't know, just box. But yeah, this salvage was unlike the others. Circus Baby was very much more aggressive than anything I've seen so far. And getting to the red was quite instant, so I had to really just log as much as possible and get out of this salvage quickly. There wasn't really much said than that, as I would beat the salvage and move straight into night 4. And now we have Circus Baby, who is actually a threat in the pizzeria. So the way Circus Baby works is it will start with Lefty on cam 8, and eventually it will make its way up to the camera 3 with Scrap Trap. When Scrap Baby gets to camera 3, it will do a move toward the office. You will see Scrap Baby at the top left of the office staring at you, and this on the first playthrough was very disturbing to see. I'm scared. She's here. What was that? Was she in my office? I swear she was in my What? This was quite a sight to see. Scrap Baby, you're quite a sight for sore eyes, I can't lie. But anyways, after that happens, Scrap Baby will move either to the left or to the right, and whichever way this thing goes, you have to go toward that area and close the door. And yeah, I forgot to mention, we have doors now. It would have been helpful having these a couple nights ago, but don't worry, they're very bad and barely work. So yeah, night 4 is definitely where things take a twist, as with all 4 animatronics, there is no room for error. We have to get through things quickly. And with the possibility of Scrap Baby being in the office when Enid appears is a very interesting dilemma, which will make things terrible, just terrible. I've had moments where I've had 2 animatronics show up at once, and it's not a fun experience, especially managing Lefty as well. What I would do is I would make sure I knew where all 3 animatronics were. I would keep the audio on Lefty as much as possible, and when the night got to about 2 to 2:30, I would then switch to cam 7, trying to predict when Lefty moves, because when Lefty does move to camera 7, if I do not get the audio on Lefty, it will move straight to cam 4, pretty much putting an end to the night. So this is by far the most important part of the whole run right here. I managed to get Lefty on the camera 7, and this managed to get rid of it just enough so that by 5:30 I wouldn't have Lefty near or at the stage where it's gonna jump scare me. And by pushing Lefty back as much as possible, I would have the perfect advantage to beat this night. And wouldn't you know it, after using this strategy and basically trapping Lefty, I would make it through night 4 and move into the final night of the game. Oh, you're so... Yeah, man. That was... Oh, okay, we got through night 4. Beautiful stuff. What's going on? So we begin night 5, and as you can tell, where is Lefty? Lefty, for some reason, is not in the pizzeria on this night. I even tried looking at all the cameras, seeing if maybe he was hiding, but you seriously could not find this person. So we have only 3 animatronics in this night, which weirdly makes it easier than night 4. But yeah, night 5 was, I can't lie, not as hard as you may have thought. It's pretty much the same as night 3, but instead of Lefty you have Circus Baby. And honestly, I would get through night 5 quite comfortably, and I think this is the first time I've ever comfortably bet a night 5. Like, this was not hard at all. After we got through night 5, something strange happened. Everything cut off, and we see, for the last time, the ocean. We then get a message on the screen, and it seems that Henry is telling us that, well, Charlotte, being Henry's daughter, was missing during the last fire. As you can tell in the last, because in night 5, Lefty wasn't there, so what happened is Lefty must have escaped the pizzeria, perhaps knowing that Henry was going to use this as bait for all the animatronics. And not wanting to, I guess, be freed, she left the pizzeria in search for perhaps vengeance or something, I'm not too sure. But yeah, this is very interesting and a cool twist on the FNAF 6 story that I was not expecting. Henry then says, your efforts were valiant, however, this whole thing was a failure, as well the main purpose was to trap Charlotte. And with that, that is the end of Banshee. There are some other things in this game, like this whole tycoon section that I completely skipped. The reason I skipped this is I genuinely didn't know how to even use it. And every time I clicked the tycoon logo, I got sent to a different dimension where this weird entity would just sit there. But after beating the game, the entity strangely vanished. So I'm not too sure what this even means. However, going to the custom night, we actually see this entity as a playable character. And interestingly, it's the same entity at the beginning of the game on night 1. So I have no idea what this even means. It looks like Golden Freddy, but it could literally be any animatronic. We begin this game outside the establishment, and we get to see the grand scope of exactly how massive this building is. That aside, we have some missing children posters, which already gives us a little clue on what is going on here. I'm not going to describe anything more because it's a FNAF game. I'm sure you can put the pieces together, as Edward Murray once said. We enter the establishment and oh my, things are dark. We can't really see much, the lighting is very ambient, and all that is really shown is the animatronics themselves. On the main stage, we can see Spring Freddy and also Spring Bonnie. These two animatronics are just about as creepy as you can imagine, but the posters would tell you otherwise. Yeah, we can see the happy, joyous faces these animatronics make, but as you know, this is a free roam FNAF game, so being terrified and screaming is definitely something we can expect. But that aside, our main goal now is to get familiar with the controls. This game only really has 2 controls, being the batteries and the glass that we can find throughout the establishment. The batteries are just there in case we run out of power, we will need to recharge, and the glass we can find is there to be thrown, and this creates a mini distraction that can alert the animatronics. If you've ever played a Ubisoft game, you know exactly how this works. But yeah, with that said, the game itself is kind of giving us a little introductory, and this all leads toward the main office. This office is our little humble abode. We have 2 doors left to right, and we have a very interesting power in the middle of the room. This power thingy is basically the main generator. If it gets too low, we need to reboot it. But this isn't really an issue for now because it's night 1 and I will not be using that much power for this night. The other thing we can find in this room is a very disturbing plush trap who looks like it's seen some stuff. Oh, plush trap, why do you look demented? Oh, hello. But yeah, don't worry, this little buddy won't do much until later on, so we can kind of just check it off for now. The main thing is gonna be Spring Bonnie and the elusive Fredbear. Fredbear is a bit of a nonchalant type of character. It will reside in its cove, not really leaving unless it has to. It only leaves the cove if you do not attend to it and shut the curtain. Obviously, my first playthrough, I didn't know what that meant because the phone guy was blabbering and I kind of just went one ear out the other. The blabbering was actually quite useful, as one of the main things it talked about was to make sure you close the curtain at the cove. But of course, I said before, I didn't really pay much attention. I was kind of already shaken by the game's mechanics that I was really starting to stress the f out. And everything was all fine and dandy until I kind of met my elusive end. Because randomly, something awoke in the night. What's with the curtain? What do you mean, keep the curtain shut? I haven't been given any instructions to why. This is gotta be the top 3 most terrified I've ever been in a FNAF fan game. Like, when this happened, I turned into an absolute gorilla. Like, I was beating my chest. I actually lost a few brain cells as well. But nonetheless, this was really a wake-up call. I'm going to have to be a little bit more alert than that. With that aside, I reattempt night 1, this time going straight to the cove and residing there as long as was needed, because I would not let that ever happen again. The cove was pretty comforting until Spring Bonnie decided, hey, I'm gonna walk around the corner at full speed. And this thing makes more sound than a 9-year-old going to grab food at 12 AM at night. You can hear it just making a bunch of sound, and sometimes you can kind of see it right in front of you. Yes, Spring Bonnie has a great tendency to just out of nowhere jump at you, which makes your playthrough a lot more tense, meaning that you have to always check your surroundings. This night was basically get away from the big Spring Bonnie and make sure the cove was at all times shut. This was very simple and didn't really cause me too much trouble, and in the same attempt I would beat the first night. We then move straight into night 2, and again we hear the phone guy ring us. We pick up and hear him talk, and he just talks to us about mainly some things to expect in the building. He goes into a little bit more in depth of the batteries and the glasses that we can find throughout the pizzeria. And the main thing is, again, you can use these items to either distract the animatronics with the glass or the batteries to recharge our flashlight, which will be useful later on. But that's all she wrote. The phone guy then hangs up, and it is our time to kind of get through the night. This time, the animatronics, including Spring Bonnie and Fredbear, are going to be more aggressive, which means for Fredbear, he will start to open the curtain a little bit faster, and I also began to realize that you can actually hear him breathing inside the cove. A very terrifying detail that definitely does make Fredbear by far the most intimidating animatronic in this game. I also wondered if I could use the doors to stop Fredbear from entering the office, but I didn't really want to try this out as it was possibly going to end in, well, me being jump scared. This night was very interesting as I was really starting to figure out how Spring Bonnie worked. To loop Spring Bonnie is quite simple. The only time Spring Bonnie gets very annoying is if he appears out of absolute nowhere. This rare phenomenon does happen quite often, so I can't really call it rare, but it was very imperative that I kept Spring Bonnie at least an arm's distance or even more to be in a safe spot. Because the time where Spring Bonnie gets most dangerous is when you run out of stamina. The stamina bar is not infinite, which makes Spring Bonnie definitely something you have to worry about. It's only when you run out of stamina when Spring Bonnie really can creep up on you, and this can create some very tense moments. The worst of these moments happened right at the end of the night. Oh shit. Oh shit! Oh no! What have I done? I'm so dead! Fuck. Fuck! I before shut the door on Spring Bonnie as to avoid it from jump scaring me. However, shutting the door is very dangerous in this game because if you shut one door, you can't enter the office from that same spot. Spring Bonnie knew this and started to corner me in that exact door. This was tenseful. Right there was pretty much the end of the night. I was very close to completing it, however I was met with a dangerous scenario. By going just around Spring Bonnie, we managed to barely avoid the jump scare. However, this definitely did make me raise more awareness to when and how I shut my doors in future nights. But with that, I would complete night 2 and move swiftly into night 3. And oh boy, things only got more difficult. Night 3 begins and Phone Guy gives us another phone call. He then explains how another animatronic resides in the building, one we have seen throughout the first 2 nights. This being Spring Freddy, who will remain on his stage. The only time Spring Freddy gets aggressive is when the lights turn off in the building. This is very dangerous as you first of all can't see much. You will then have to use your flashlight if this ever does occur. However, always check your battery because there was a very bad moment where I was playing and I ran out of flashlight. Especially when the room is dark, you really don't know what's going on. Anyways, when the place goes dark, Spring Freddy will go to either hallway. At that point, Freddy will remain at the hallway until he decides to start moving closer towards you. He also sometimes just peers around the corners. He can also crouch down and look for you. Basically, he's more of a stalker, if anything. But the main thing to do with Spring Freddy is try to avoid him at all cost, because going one-on-one against Freddy is a near-death sentence, as he's one of the fastest animatronics in the game. He has a slightly faster movement pattern than Spring Bonnie, which can create some very tight scenarios, especially with the hallways being so narrow. When the power does shut off, it's very important that you go ahead and reboot the power. To do this, you're going to have to go toward the office and toward the main computer. You then have to initiate a power reboot sequence, which will then tell you to go ahead and flip the switch. The switch can be located right behind the main stage in this little corner room. In the room, just use the switch and this will grant power back to the building. If you lay this off and don't do this quick, the night becomes very stressful, as first of all, the lighting is no longer there, you can't see what you're doing, and it's very important that you always can see where the animatronics are, because this game can become very stressful if you cannot. There was many attempts where it ended pretty much with Spring Freddy running down the hallway to jump scare me. So I definitely had to adapt to this new gameplay mechanic, but it wasn't long before I managed to get away with, well, being alive. Although something I've brushed past is the mechanics of Plushtrap. Plushtrap is a bit of an interesting animatronic in this game, as it only appears at random times throughout the night. I couldn't really put a pin on how this animatronic works. It kind of just appeared and jump scared me randomly, and there was no way of knowing if it appeared. You kind of just walk around the building and then bang, Plushtrap is in your face eating it. And this usually does stagger the player, but doesn't actually, well, end your night. It can be very bad because if this happens and an animatronic is stalking you, then it can end the night. But Plushtrap is more of an obstacle, with the other animatronics being the main threats. I will say with Plushtrap, it only appeared twice throughout my whole playthrough, so I'm really unsure on how it works, but it's very important to keep an eye on it because I believe it's got something to do with being near the Plushtrap that makes it not move. If you're not near it, then I think it moves. I'm not sure, but I think that's how it works. Anyways, night 3 was a bit of an interesting battle that kind of was just getting used to the place going dark, which is the main difference between this night and the other ones. But eventually I would be able to beat night 3, and now we would move into night 4. We next move into night 4, which is when this game becomes a little bit more difficult. Already, the animatronics AI levels are going up quite quickly, but night 4 is when things hit a new level. Everything is basically out to get us. We have Spring Freddy, Spring Bonnie, and Plushtrap, and the elusive Fredbear in this night, all being very aggressive, and it's very important that we remain calm at all times. The main thing I had to really check on was the cove, as Fredbear was now opening the door or the cove curtains very quickly. There was no time to muck around. This was when I had to lock in. I was starting to prioritize mainly on gathering as many batteries as possible, as the flashlight becomes more of a useful mechanic as the game progresses, as there's more instances for a power outage in the later nights. I also had to check mainly the hallways for Spring Freddy, as if Spring Freddy appeared, this was a very bad situation. The thing is, his speed mixed with his whole gimmick of trying to catch you off guard is what makes him such a threat. And Spring Bonnie is a threat as well, but is very much not as bad as Spring Freddy. You can kind of get rid of Spring Bonnie by simply looking out for him or hearing his very loud footsteps. And again, the power outage is a lot more common in this night, so definitely getting to the power outage router is very important in this night. Overall, night 4 was difficult, but I had already gone through the mechanics, and at this point I was really confident in being able to beat the animatronics. So I tried my best, and this allowed me to get very far into the night. There was a few hiccups here and there. I did get a few stages where I was very close to meeting a jump scare, and a lot of times I was very stressed as the power outage comes usually at the worst time possible. With that said, night 4 would be a challenge, but one that I would eventually beat. This then puts us straight into the final night, being night 5. So getting into the final night, there's a lot of things to look out for. By now, as you know, everything is out to get us, and not just that, but they're at their most highest AI levels. So there's no room for mucking around. This night has to be played perfectly. There are some very important things I have to look out for in night 5. The first thing is the cove. By this point, Fredbear is not gonna just slowly open that curtain. He's gonna make sure that curtain is opening at all times. So I need to go there and shut that as soon as possible. To add on to Fredbear, the other animatronics are always out to get me. Spring Freddy literally started walking at 1 AM. On the previous nights, he only moved at about 3 to 4 AM. So this was definitely a really intense switch up. And we get multiple power out sequences, which is a lot more than the prior nights. No, no, no! Close, close. Sorry. Overall, the office is now kind of a waste because we can't really check everything in the office. We have to be out in the pizzeria to check on everything, which means I am very vulnerable. All it takes is one mess up or I end up going too close to one of the animatronics and that's the end of the night. I made sure I kept my cool and that I was locking in on that cove, getting that thing shut at all times, and everything was smooth. I actually had a very good night. And that all changed when 4 AM hit, because this hour is when everything shuts off. You don't even understand. I was so confused when this happened. Amanib, can you sing me a bedtime story? Scratching my head, I then was told to go toward the power room. And this is when things got quite interesting. The second I used the power, the whole building had this red mist completely engulf the place. And I was scratching my head. You don't even understand the terror that this brought upon me. The animatronics no longer move. It appears that we are safe. That is until we are met with a very strange predicament. We have to go ahead and cleanse the souls of the missing children. We have to do this with a certain someone chasing us, this being Charles' vengeful spirit, which will hunt us down throughout the building. I can't even put into words the sheer terror that this entity brought me. It was genuinely one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had, because here I am just trying to figure out what's going on and I just get absolutely eaten alive. By a very terrifying looking thing. And not even that, but the spirit of the children will kind of go around the building trying to get you. And it's just very, very bad. Like, this is genuinely some nightmare level shit. From this point onwards, we're going to have to face the Thing, which is a task in itself. The main way to battle the Thing is to really try and stay as far away from it as possible. If the Thing locks eyes with you and goes into its frenzy mode, you have no way of surviving. This is mostly a game over, as the speed of the Thing is way quicker than you, the player. The only way to keep alive is to watch where you step, as there's no way to avoid this entity. Well, there's one way, and that is to use your flashlight. Specifically, you have to use the flashlight exactly on the Thing's eyes. This will stagger it, making it no longer able to pursue you. But it's not as easy as this, as the placement of the flashlight is very important. If it's not at the eyes of the entity, it will continue to chase you, which means you will, well, lose. It took me a long time to figure this out, and there was many moments where I had no idea why it was still chasing me. But after I realized that I had to use the flashlight on its eyes, the rest of the night was a little bit more achievable. Main thing about this night from here onwards is we have to go toward the office. In the office, there's the computer which has the power reset button. However, there is a 20 to 30 second timer, which means that we have to actually stay alive for that long. And once that timer reaches 0, we can go ahead and use the emergency power. Every time you do this, you have to go back toward the power room in the back of the stage and then flip the switch. Ah! You have to do this a grand total of 6 times, and each time there's going to be new entities in the pizzeria. In that, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie will activate and be in the hallways. There's not much I can say beside good luck. This is actually one of the most terrifying challenges I've ever done in a FNAF game. And there's also the spirit of the kids, which will go around the building, and again, if you use the flashlight you can stagger these things, but it's very much not recommended. The best way to get through this night is to just run and try not to get caught. There's also these eyes around the building, which I don't actually know what they do. I believe they actually trigger or alert the entity, but I'm not too sure. They're just kind of there and they look creepy as anything you can imagine. The rest of this night is completely just repeating the same task. However, at 3 and 4 a.m, Fredbear, Spring Bonnie, and Spring Freddy will go to the hallways, which means we have to kind of reroute our way toward the office, which does make the whole night a lot more terrifying. And another thing is the puppet will just go in and out of these portals, which makes our life just 10 times harder. The main thing is to keep patient, making sure that we are always not going near the puppet entity and that we're making sure we're using our flashlight and we're grabbing batteries, because there's a lot of times where you have to use the flashlight, so grabbing batteries is a must in this night. I would say this is similar to the Joy of Creation Chica level, as the mechanics are roughly the same. But anyways, I would eventually get better and better until I would reach the later hours. This is when things were a lot tougher, but again, keeping to my plan of avoiding as much conflict as possible, the hours soon became very near 6 a.m, which meant I was nearly done with the game. However, 5 a.m would be an interesting challenge, as the puppet is very aggressive. Every time you flashlight the puppet, it just respawns instantly, which means you have to always be on your A game. This was very stressful. I was at the point of nearly just alt F4ing. I was that terrified. Ah! Is it done? Yes! Getting toward the last power beaker was very relieving, as this would cause an end to the puppet, and the whole pizzeria would start to run as expected. The animatronics are on their stages and things seem to be nice and dandy. So we attempt to leave the pizzeria, only to have the door be locked. Oh, yep. Oh yeah, we're floating. Yes, you saw that correctly. We don't actually survive. In fact, we get trapped inside the pizzeria forever. This is the end of those night at Fredbear's, the 6 a.m. mode demo. However, as you know, it's FNAF, so we're not actually done yet. In fact, there's a 2020 mode, which is this game's night 7. Well, there's not really a night 6, so this max mode is very difficult as it incorporates every single animatronic we've seen so far, but puts their AI at the highest difficulty we've seen yet. It is basically a all-out frenzy. We have to play perfectly. There's no other way to put it. There is so much going on that we have to really utilize every mechanic we've learned so far. Mainly, it's really trying to put yourself in the best position. If I knew where the animatronics were, being Spring Freddy and Spring Bonnie, I would then have to make it so I'm able to go to Fredbear and go and check on Plushtrap. All this said, it was very difficult because Spring Bonnie and Spring Freddy were roaming like never before. So if I made a slight mistake, then I would leave myself open for an attack. The way this game would go is I would basically run around until a power outage would occur, and then I would have to use every single mechanic, including throwing glass around, to make sure the animatronics are distracted. Then I can go ahead and recharge the power, but making sure I also go to Fredbear and use the curtain to shut it. All in all, it was absolutely chaotic. There's no other way to put it. But it was definitely something that I was able to achieve, as eventually, not after long actually, I would be able to complete the 420 mode. This was very relieving, however, it did feel like it wasn't as much of a challenge as I would have intended. But I'm not trying to say that it wasn't hard. There may be other challenges that this game has. There is a puppet mode, but this mode does seem to be a little bit janky, and I don't know how I'm going to go around doing it as there's literally too much going on. But who knows, maybe in the future I might attempt it, but for this video, I'm going to leave it for another time. But yeah, with the 420 mode beaten, we don't actually get a new cutscene. That actually wraps up the game. However, there are a few more modes, including the Reborn mode, which is essentially like the Joy of Creation Reborn. However, this time we have to collect 35 pages. It's pretty interesting. However, I did find that some of the pages were very hard to spot, which did make it very hard to beat. And I can't lie, I was only able to collect 26 of the 35 pages. This mode is overall something that is cool that they added, but I do find the whole thing not that intimidating as the animatronics aren't really active. Like, it feels like night 2 with just you having to find 35 different items. So I can't lie, I'm probably going to leave this one, but there's definitely room for me to beat this in the future. And there's also another mode called the table tennis or the Fazbear tennis mode. Essentially, you spawn in a room and you have to wait till Fredbear runs, and every time you hear him run, you have to shut that door and continue to do this. I can't lie, I did scream a lot because when I first played, I didn't even know what to expect. So seeing a 1-ton animatronic charge before me was something that did make me scream quite a bit. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it for this demo, and I can't believe that this is a demo, not even a full game. Like, there's so much content in this one game that it actually feels like a full game at that. Yeah, that's pretty much it for those Night at Fredbear's. By far one of my most favorite FNAF fan games I've played. And specifically, if we go toward the extras menu and go to the custom night, it is the 2020-2020 mode with all of the abilities turned on. Now, just to paint the picture, the game is already very difficult without this setting on, just on night 5. But when you put this setting on, it turns it into an absolute horror fest. Some things to expect is running down a hallway and randomly getting jump scared by a 8-foot puppet. And other things to expect is really strange looking illusions running through the pizzeria trying to get you. All in all, it's absolutely painful and nightmare fuel, but it is a very challenging reward. But it is beatable, kinda. Some things we need to pay attention to is firstly the surroundings. This overall pizzeria is tight in terms of the rooms, which means we don't have much space to travel to. If we get caught in any room, this will spell an end to any attempt. And not only that, but the animatronics, Spring Freddy and Spring Bonnie, are very quick. I'm not going to go through all the mechanics because I have a whole ass video right here that you can check out with the whole game, but just let me give you a little bit of insight. The animatronics will hunt me, and if they get too close to me, I die. I know, very interesting information. The thing that makes it very hard is the puppet and its unique mechanic. It will spawn in randomly through the night, and from this point it will then be a very prominent threat. It will randomly run toward me, and when this happens, we have no questions. When this happens, we have no way of knowing. It will just simply run toward us. It sounds terrifying, and let me just inform you, it is. Because imagine you're running, trying to get away from Spring Bonnie and Spring Freddy, and all of a sudden, you die. It's a very challenging thing to keep track of this puppet entity. So challenging, in fact, that I seriously could not beat it for 3 hours straight. So I had to go ahead and play this mode with footsteps turned on, because with footsteps turned off, you literally can't hear anything. There's nothing to tell you where any animatronic is. With the footsteps turned on, this night becomes slightly more beatable, but at the same time, it does feel like cheating because every single ability should be turned on. But I had to do this just to get myself, some experience, and when I tell you, it still makes this night very hard. But actually hearing out for animatronics gives you a slight advantage, especially with the puppet and its unique footsteps. I mean, you can hear this guy across the pizzeria, which makes every advance that he does a little bit more manageable. And another thing with the puppet is you can't just keep the flashlight on the whole night, because more flashlight equals angry puppet, and when the puppet's eyes turn orange, you die. There's no way of beating it, it is an instant game over. The only way to deflect the puppet is when its eyes are purple. Mainly if you don't use your flashlight often and you use it sparingly, this will happen. So you kind of have to balance the puppet and then its different mood cycles. The guy's got bipolar, okay? It's got bipolar. And not only that, but it's very quick when it targets you, so there's really not much time to react. All in all, this puppet is going to be one challenging opponent. Main thing to do is keep as calm as possible. Using the flashlight for too long will blow our cover, so in a way, we have to be patient and use the flashlight only when the puppet is very close to targeting us. You will also notice these like spirits around the pizzeria. If you do get captured by the spirit, it will hold you in place right for the puppet to claim you. So avoid the spirits if you can. With the footsteps on, honestly, I can't lie, it isn't as hard as I thought. As long as you always check your surroundings and listen out for the puppet's mighty footsteps, the night itself is definitely beatable. My tactic was to run around the pizzeria in a certain pattern. I would start at the top of the pizzeria, looping around to Fredbear's curtain, which has to remain closed. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but yeah, if you keep Fredbear's curtain out for too long, it will run out and get you. Because if you let the curtains go out, then this will happen. And what do you mean, keep the curtains shut? I haven't been given any instructions to why. So you don't want that happening. My tactic was very simple, however there were a few minor inconveniences. We will start with Plush Trap. Plush Trap will spawn randomly and will jump scare the player. It won't kill you, no, don't worry. Instead, it will just make it so the animatronics will then jump scare you. So it does kill you. But I mean, there's a chance that you might survive, so do with that what you will. By keeping pretty vigilant and looking out for my surroundings, honestly, the 2020 mode with footsteps was pretty attainable. And eventually, after a couple of attempts, I would actually beat this night. However, this wasn't it. We had to do the non-footstep, which will make this challenge 50 times harder, because the footsteps was a major way I was listening out for the puppet. Without this, well, there's no way of knowing where it is. So let's get your attention to the non-footstep mode, and it is quite painful. The main way I would go around beating the night is we would start off by grabbing as many batteries as possible. We don't need too much batteries, just enough to make sure the puppet is at bay. So 1 or 2 should do fine. Then by going to Fredbear's stage, I would immediately shut the curtain. After this, we would run around the pizzeria looking out for the puppet, because by this point, we will start to see the red haze illuminate throughout the pizzeria, signifying that the puppet is out and bloodthirsty. If we keep cool and check around, we will eventually find the puppet. However, I can't lie, the first time the puppet attacks is very random. Okay, see, bro, without footsteps, you can't hear that. And can cause for some very shocking surprises. But after this, flashing the light at it, we would then repeat this as many times as possible. You are now simply trying to find a rhythm with the puppet. No, you're not dancing with it. In fact, you're just trying to make sure you keep as much space from it and try not to make it eat your head. I must say it is quite a challenging experience because the puppet tends to find ways to surprise you in very meaningful ways. By making sure I'm not spamming the flashlight, because this does make the puppet pretty angry, so try and avoid as much light as possible. He's a bit of an overreactor. But as I said before, if you're using the flashlight very sparingly and cautiously, the puppet's eyes should never turn orange. You also have to make sure you're going from room to room, because for some reason in this game, the puppet works as someone who needs to always chase you. There's also a sanity meter that isn't even explained in the game's mechanics, but overall, if you really want to beat the puppet, you just gotta run and hope for the best. Because I've looked on the forums and no one really knows how this puppet works, so yeah. When I tell you that this night took me ages, I mean, it took me yonks. However, there was one attempt that was different from the rest, because I had finally found a good spot to keep the puppet at bay. I kept just finding out where the puppet was, and there was tight moments, but I managed to just use the flashlight, and this was very much the road to something great. Because by now I hadn't even gone past 3 AM, but here we are on 4 AM with a little more than 2 hours left. My heart was pounding. My fingers were cramping, actually. I don't know what was going on there, but it was very hard to do this. There were some very close moments where the souls of the animatronics were starting to corner me off, but I also managed to encounter an animatronic that I didn't even know existed. This being the endoskeleton Fredbear. This thing has no sense of being in the pizzeria. It doesn't even make sense that it's there. It's like a spirit animatronic that kind of walks around randomly, and the main thing you have to do is keep as much space from it. And to be honest, I had no idea what this even was, and I don't really have much words to describe this thing. It just kind of happened. But the animatronic for some reason just disappeared, and I was kind of relieved, but also still kind of shocked that this happened. Anyways, we then continued throughout the pizzeria, keeping space from the puppet, and it was getting to the point where we were on 5 AM, and hold on, we might actually beat this. But you see, that wasn't going to be the case. Well, not entirely, because right at the end of 5 AM, I had managed to run straight into a dead end. Spring Freddy and Spring Bonnie came from both sides. There was no way of escaping. It was only do or die. Oh! No, no, please, 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 no! I won! Bro, I won, I literally won. I did it! Somehow, by the slither of time, I just barely managed to hit 6 AM. The reason I know this is because if you look at the main menu, there's 2 stars as opposed to 1. So we actually completed the night. However, I wouldn't say it was entirely beaten, as I did die at the very end, but the game recorded it as a win, so I'm gonna record it as a win. We move on next to an absolute classic on this channel, being the iconic Post Shift 2. And fellas, what could be better than playing the 6th night of this game, aka the hardest night of the whole game. And with Post Shift 2 being regarded as one of the hardest FNAF games, this is going to be definitely something you're going to want to enjoy. So with that, let's hop straight into it. This night is so complicated that it's actually put into 4 different sections. Because if one wasn't enough, why not make 4? And there's so much to go through, so I'm just going to go ahead and just say, get ready, because there's a lot of things that are going to come out of my mouth. This night is split into different sections, 4 in particular. All these areas have different things to look out for, and the animatronics will change depending on the hour of the night. We begin with the night's 12 AM to 2 AM section. Which houses the following animatronics. This being S1 Freddy, S2 Foxy, S3 Chica, and S4 Bonnie. We start with S1 Freddy, who will appear at the event walkway view. As soon as you see this glorious person, you need to go ahead and press on the mobile monitor 1, 2, 3, and 4. Very peculiar numbers, I know, but once you press all of these numbers, he goes away. Next is Foxy. If you make your way toward the cove and into stage 5, he will be present at event view. You have to now use your mobile monitor and load a voice, and this will magically get rid of Foxy. Next up is Chica, and the way Chica works is she will appear at the prototypes table. From here, you will need to equip and flip the plushie that you will have. It's this little cute Chica plushie, and if you flip it, it will make this demented looking chicken go away. And lastly is, well, Bonnie. And Bonnie will appear at the communications post view. From here, you will need to listen carefully to the current guitar variation that is playing. You will need to then select the appropriate version of this in the mobile monitor, and do note, be very careful, because if you pick the wrong one, then you get jump scared. Overall, it is a pretty interesting lineup of mechanics, but it does create for some really interesting moments, like getting bombarded by 3 different things at the same time. There's a lot of things going on, but when you kind of put it down, there's actually not much. It's just kind of how the game shows its mechanics and how really weird the mechanics themselves are. Like flipping a Chica plushie literally makes no sense, but I mean, if it works, it works. Lastly is Golden Freddy, and Golden Freddy will stay at the main stage. Eventually, you will hear a speaker begin, and it will say that something has become unstable. You will need to then press Q at the stage and then go to the speakers and switch the volume down. So yeah, this guy has some fucking ear problems. The last animatronic is Shadow Freddy, but I haven't actually experienced this animatronic, so honestly, let's just assume that it doesn't exist because I have not seen it playing this game for multiple hours. When you get to 2 AM, the game then changes to the 2 AM to 4 AM, well, night. And this is by far the most infuriating mode in the whole game, and I'll tell you why right now. Firstly, there's about 6 animatronics that we need to deal with, and these are all some absolutely awfully designed animatronics. I'll start with Remnant Balloon Boy, and this piece of shit will appear at the communications post view. Now, this thing has like stomach cramps or some shit, so if you see its torso starting to open up, we need to simply click on the torso. It'll go into 3 different stages, and if it opens up fully, then you're basically dead. Possibly one of the most easiest to deal with, but at the same time, just having to always go to the communications post is annoying in itself. Next up is the Minotaur Puppet, and this thing will go between all 7 cameras. Your goal is to stare at it until it goes away. And the problem with this animatronic is most of the time, you won't actually know it's in your cameras. It appears so quickly that by the time you've actually opened up your cameras, you've just been given a flashbang of Minotaur Puppet on your screen. The only way to actually fully get rid of the Minotaur Puppet is to simply go toward the main area and stare at Golden Freddy. For some reason, this somehow calms the puppet. I don't know why, but it's a way to deal with it. Because I can't lie, without this feature, I feel like I would literally be hard locked on this hour because I absolutely can't, for the life of me, find this thing on the cameras. Next up is Minotaur Baby, and this thing will randomly appear in your office staring at the computer screen. Who knows what it's watching? I can't assume anything good, but the main thing you have to do is equip your mobile monitor and view the memories that this thing has. The memories are either good or bad, and you have to simply select if it's good or bad. The game says that it may require some time to learn, but I can't lie, it's pretty fucking easy to deal with this thing. Next up is Remnant Puppet, and this thing will reside in camera 5. When we go on camera 5, we have to see if the actual animatronic is there. And if it is there, we simply have to shift the camera view away from the puppet. Somehow, this just gets rid of the whole threat, and I'm not too sure how this even makes sense, but just that's how it works. Next up is Minotaur Balloon Boy, and this thing likes to play a little game. This game is called Hide and Listen, and you simply have to just press the button to play the game. Once you are underneath the table, you have to wait until you hear the thing leaving, and that means you're safe. So it's hide and listen, but it's also a pretty stupid game, and in my opinion has no reason to be at all this stupid. Enough Minotaur BB hate aside, the last thing is Minotaur Ballora, by far the thing I hate most. This thing will appear at the second terminal and at the vent view. When you get toward the vent view, it is our goal to go onto the camera thing or whatever this thing is and press the switch tune button. It says that you have to hear a low bass note track playing to switch the tracks, but I've just noticed if you switch the tracks, it gets rid of her most of the time. However, sometimes she will just not leave and you will just go around the whole thing and she will randomly jump scare you without you even knowing. And this is a very infuriating thing that can happen, and it has happened to me about 16 times already. Like, I'm just moving around checking all the other little shits, and then Minotaur Ballora just jumps at me like I don't know what's going on. So this thing actually nearly had me pulling my hair out. I spent about an hour trying to deal with this one animatronic, and I just hate this thing. Like, look at it. I want to punch it in the face. And there's another animatronic, and this thing is, I don't even know what this is. I believe it's Shadow Freddy that we mentioned in the previous night or hours. But apparently I was playing, and the next minute I just kind of had nothing to do. I was just staring at a shadow entity. And this thing was actually kind of a blessing in disguise because the hours went by pretty quickly as it came onto my, screen. So I was staring at it for a solid 2 to 3 minutes, and this meant I actually got through 4 AM and reached the 5 AM mark just before I got jump scared by the shadow entity. So I was buzzing, we just got to 4 AM and we just managed to get the checkpoint at 4 AM. If I didn't mention previously, this game has checkpoints through the night. The checkpoints are at 4 AM and at 6 AM. Some reason you don't get a checkpoint before because screw you, go through these absolutely just awful animatronics and then get to the 4 AM mark. So I thought, hey, this is a good time playing this game, I'm gonna hop off and do some other stuff, perhaps edit, and I did that. I closed the application and I went to go do some other stuff. I came back a day later to re-spark my absolutely fascination for this game, and as I hop back on, it appears I was put straight back to 12 AM. This caused me to absolutely lose my shit, because I had now just thrown away the biggest advantage I would get in the whole game. It seems like the post-shift 2 just gave me this massive advantage, with me getting a really cheesy way to get to 4 AM and then saying, nah, go back to 12 AM and do that all again. So I now had to get back to 4 AM, but this way do it the legit way, because we had to now actually play without getting a Shadow Freddy cheese. And this would take me multiple hours to get back to 4 AM, because this game is brutal. The main thing I love about this game is when you get absolutely bombarded by 3 animatronics at once. This happens a lot at 12 AM to 2 AM when you get all 3, Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, and Foxy at the same time, and oh my, it's just great having my screen flashing at me every single fucking second. And then the Minotaurs and Remnants is equally as painful, and overall, it took me over 3 hours to just even scrape to 3 AM. But eventually, I would get back to 4 AM, although it did cause me to nearly lose my sanity. All that aside, we would then reach 4 AM to 6 AM, the Revenants and Remnants section. Let's go through all these beautiful animatronics, starting with Revenant Bonnie. This piece of shit will either be next to Golden Freddy on the stage or reside at the event view, just like Ballora and Foxy prior. You will need to equip and use a drone as decoy via the camera monitor. If you see Bonnie, you just go to the camera, press the decoy button, and it will just look at it like like an animal and just run away. Pretty fitting for this creature, but overall, it's a pretty interesting section, and Bonnie doesn't really appear much, so we don't have to really worry about this mechanic at all. Next is Remnant Freddy. This guy makes no sense, because what you're meant to do, right, is play his music box at the prototype's table. As soon as his music begins to repeat a single note, you'll need to press 4, 3, 2, and 1 in the mobile monitor. Now this specific mechanic here, repeating the single note, doesn't actually make much sense because the sound itself is the same. I couldn't tell a difference. So I would just spam just 4, 3, 2, 1 as many times as possible until I was able to reset the song via the camera monitor. This does work. It has a pretty low success rate, to be honest, because Freddy just decides to stay a long time, and when you have other animatronics just already in your face, yeah, Revenant Freddy is overall quite annoying, but that is that one aside. Next is Remnant Foxy, who will be under our table. We will need to go under there and go on our camera monitor. From here, we go to Remnant Foxy and select a negative memory. The negative memory in, well, what we're talking about is this specific one with this person with a gas mask. I'm not too sure why this is the memory that causes Foxy to tweak out, but I'm not going to ask questions. If this is what's going to make him go away, then please do so. I hate this thing. And lastly is Remnant Chica, who is exactly like her counterpart from 12 AM to 2 AM. But this one has a slightly less patient time and will jump scare you just a bit quicker, so be extra vigilant when you see or hear this thing spawn. Overall, 4 AM to 6 AM is nightmare fuel, and if you're gonna ask me, it's just about dealing with Remnant Freddy. That's the hardest part of the whole section. But in all honesty though, it is pretty beatable compared to the last 2 sections, and this will lead us to 6 AM, and no, we don't win. Of course we don't. We're gonna have to do another 200 seconds of absolute brutal, just animatronic bullshit. When we get to 6 AM, we will then face 2 new entities, being Remnant's End and Amalgabot. Both of these things will have 3 different mechanics, guys, so we have a lot more to deal with, and we have 200 whole seconds. So let's go through the animatronics, starting with Remnant's End. This thing can firstly spawn in the elevator. You will hear a massive thing going, "Go to the elevator, you absolute donkey." And then once you're at the elevator, you have to simply do a very weird thing, including shutting the door and waiting 3 seconds. This then summons the entity, and you have to repeat this 3 times until you see this thing standing fully up. When this thing starts to, well, I guess get aggressive, you have to leave this section by pressing S, and that's the first way to deal with Remnant's End. The second way to deal with Remnant's End is if it appears on the stage with Golden Freddy. You will then need to go to the event view, and just like Foxy from the first 2 hours of the night, load a voice to lure him away. Once he's there, this is the third thing it can do. you will hear something kind of saying, go to this section, you are needed, and you simply have to just put a mask together, and this just makes Revenant's End go away. Those are all 3 ways to deal with Revenant's End. He's pretty difficult if you don't know what you're doing, but if you know roughly what's going on. For the last animatronic, we have the Amalgabot, and this thing has as well 3 different ways to deal with it. The first way is that the Amalgabot will appear at the communications post view. All we need to do is equip the Bonnie mask, and this will scare the thing away, because it's an absolute bitch. The next thing is the Amalgabot will appear at the prototypes table view. We simply have to stop the music from playing using our camera monitor. We will have to search the cameras for this button, and after we find the button, we have to simply press it and press it again until it goes away. This button is a bit stubborn and sometimes will not go away, so you kind of have to wait and wait until the button just disappears. It can take some time, but if you're patient enough, it should go away after 4 to 5 times. With everything else I've said previously in the night, this can become infuriating, so let's move into the last mechanic, being that the Amalgabot can appear underneath the prototype table. If this happens, simply view the camera monitor and go to cam 1, 2, and 4 and look for the auto protocol button. This will lure Amalgabot back into one of the rooms, meaning that you don't have to deal with it anymore. That is it for the Amalgabot and Revenant's End, and overall, this doesn't sound too bad compared to the other areas of the night. The only problem is I wish that was as simple as it sounds, because with everything I've mentioned, this night does have some balance issues, and the first thing is the Revenant's End. This thing is very stubborn. It will appear and jump scare you very quickly after appearing. So you have to take care of it as quick as possible, because it's not patient and will get you if you're not careful. The Amalgabot is slightly easier to deal with, but then again, still always get rid of this thing as soon as possible. This game is called Those Nights at Fredbear's New Destiny. Before starting this game, we get a really prominent warning that there's jump scares, flashing lights, loud noises, and you can already tell this game is going to be the scariest one just by the warning itself. So the first thing we see is a cutscene, and the camera zooms into the Fredbear's diner, and we get some dialogue on what's happening in the pizzeria. Essentially, some guy is, well, doing some stuff, and basically we need to investigate what's happening inside the animatronic. So we get into the establishment, we grab our flashlight, and our job now is to find the office. This place is massive. I remember first spawning in and being absolutely just stunned on how big the building is. Like, scale wise, this game is just huge. So yeah, we get to the office and we find a nice camera feed, which gives us all the cameras around the building. This building has a whopping 23 cameras. Like, looking at the map, this building is humongous. Like, why do you need 23 different rooms in a Fredbear pizzeria? It makes no sense, but nonetheless, to conclude the shift, I would get familiar with the layout of the building, and by this point, it was time to leave and begin our night 1 shift. So we enter our first night, and Phone Guy gives us a little quick demo on what we need to look out for. He's not really too helpful. In fact, he's the complete opposite. He pretty much just tells us good luck, and that's about it. I found some sticky notes around the office, and these sticky notes pretty much outlined what I was doing, kind of what to look out for, you know, glowing eyes, not good, stuff like that. Everything was all nice until around 3 AM hit, and I noticed that my generator usage was becoming a lot higher as I was closing doors because I was panicking, and this led to my actual power running low. So I had to make a very quick dart toward the generator room. I got to the room and my power had already drained. I was being very cautious, and this actually led to my downfall, because now I had to face whatever happened at the power outage sequence. So I ran frantically to a corner, and yeah, I screamed a bit. So I reattempt night 1, and this time I actually went to the generator a lot earlier to refill it, and this worked. So I went back to my office, and as I was going back, someone was actually already in the office, and this was Spring Bonnie. So I started screaming and running the other way, and I was just hoping that this would be not the end of my night. So I looped Bonnie around the building and went back to my office and shut both doors. doors, and this got rid of the animatronic threat. I then remained in the office for the rest of the night, checking both hallways ever so often, and this would get me the night completion. The next night, we are basically told that we have no jurisdiction and that us seeing the animatronics means nothing, and that's great because we pretty much have to continue our shift like nothing happened. So as I said before, phone guy, pretty useless, but nonetheless, new night, and now we have to say hello to Spring Freddy. This animatronic is essentially the same as Spring Bonnie, but now we have two animatronics to take care of, so it's a little bit harder. So for this night, what I actually did is I went to the generator room, I just refilled the generator, and I noticed that with these two animatronics, they only go toward the office. So me using my massive brain, I stayed in the generator room and camped there because I literally had nothing to worry about. So this worked and I got the night completion pretty easily. And you can say this is cheating, but as the nights continue, this won't be usable, trust me. I would make my way toward the generator room as my power was getting pretty low. As I was making my way toward the room, Spring Bonnie saw me, and this initiated a chase where I was running around the pizzeria just headlessly, and this eventually led me to Spring Freddy, and I got pretty much crushed by the two animatronics, so good start to night 3. I also forgot to mention that there's a new animatronic in this night, which is Plushtrap. The way Plushtrap works is he will go from shelf to shelf until he reaches the generator room. By this point, he will completely deactivate the generator, and if you haven't already gotten rid of Plushtrap, he will essentially give you a game over, so don't do that. The way I dealt with Plushtrap is I literally grabbed him and I chucked him to a shelf across the pizzeria, so that was pretty nice. And each time Plushtrap did end up going back to the generator, I kept just going back and forth, putting him down on the shelf, and this ended up getting me the night completion, and we would get to night 4, where we now had to say hello to the man himself, Fredbear. How Fredbear works is he will eventually go off each stage, and by this point he will track you down. Like, he will literally go from one side of the pizzeria to your exact location, and you either have to hide or run. But running is not that wise because he's literally faster than you. So yeah, you're screwed. So how I went through this night is I would have a strategy where I would go to the generator room. I would then wait for Plushtrap inside the room. And at this point, I would refill the generator, take Plushtrap back toward the shelf, and do this to around 4 AM. Then I would go back toward my office and stay here. And this was probably the worst part of the night because going to the office meant either Spring Bonnie or Spring Freddy would see me, and it would instantly initiate a chase. So that was terrifying. I would then close both doors, and by this point it was time to check for Fredbear. And now it was time to make a last ditch run to the exit door, because in this game, if you get to 6 AM, you don't actually win, you have to exit the building, and the exit door is located on the other side of the building. So this means I have to run away from all the animatronics at the end of the night. So here are some compilations of me running from the animatronics at the last hour of the night. Enjoy. Oh no. It was time for night 5, and this is where things got extremely hard. All the animatronics were extremely aggressive, and I had to adapt to this new level of aggression. So what I found out is that by having Plushtrap in the generator room, I could actually stall him. With Plushtrap, if you pick him up and take him to a shelf, every 3 times you do this, there's a chance that he will bite you. So by letting Plushtrap go from shelf to shelf in the generator room, I could prevent him from going into the generator and at the same time keep him at bay. And by doing this, all the other animatronics will pretty much not even be in the night. The only animatronic being Fredbear, but when Fredbear enters the room and checks for me, I hide in the generator until he leaves, and then I continue the method. This at first was a little bit hard, and I kind of had to change my whole playstyle, but eventually I would get later and later into the night. And I beat night 5, but I actually didn't record it. I somehow forgot to record night 5 being completed. So because of that, I will complete the 2020-2020 mode for you guys, which is the hardest mode in this game, and actually hasn't been tested to be completed. So I hope that kind of makes things a lot less, bad. So it was clear this mode from the get-go was gonna be brutally tough, but I had devised a plan that could potentially see us completing this night and therefore making it somewhat possible. So this is how it would go. Essentially, on the beginning of the night, I would make my way to the generator room. I would ignore every single animatronic except Plushtrap and Fredbear, and that would pretty much eliminate half the animatronics in the game. When I got to the generator room, it was a matter of just keeping Plushtrap at bay. I learned pretty early on that Plushtrap works as so. There's certain areas where Plushtrap is more likely to go back to the old shelf than he is from going to the new shelf. I kept Plushtrap in a certain area where he would always go to his old shelf, which was around this point of the map. The red dots on the map signify his movesets and where he would go from one area to the other. By using my flashlight as Plushtrap gets toward this area, he is always more likely to go back to the old shelf than he is going to the new shelf. And this eliminates the threat of me being bit because I actually don't need to grab Plushtrap, only if he gets too close to the generator room and I feel that it is too unsafe. This strat was just me experimenting with the game because I knew that me running around with the animatronics would simply not work. So here we are, and honestly it works pretty well. If you get really good at Plushtrap RNG, you can even keep him before the shelf, which is pretty good because as long as he doesn't get toward the generator, you're pretty much good to go. I would attempt this night for multiple hours. The main issue was Fredbear, and when he entered my room, if I was, dealing with Plushtrap and this happened, it was essentially a game over. Another issue was when Plushtrap bites me. This happens once every 3 times you grab him, and if you're not careful, it can really be dangerous, especially if you're already in the generator room itself. So to be safe, I would often just put Plushtrap on the shelf every 2 goes as to not risk going through a power outage. So eventually I would get a really good run. However, at around 5:50 AM, Plushtrap would enter my generator, and this would initiate a power outage sequence. With not much time left, I would make my way directly toward the exit. All that remained was Fredbear, and thankfully, he didn't become aggressive until I left the building. If Fredbear had become active, it would have been a very close exit. But that concludes the max difficulty night in Those Nights at Freddy's. To conclude, we get this really cool animation of all the animatronics staring us down with text saying that it's over now. So we also get the extras menu, and here we can see all the animatronics in all their glory. I just found that the size of Plushtrap compared to everything else was just absolutely hilarious. Like, look at this little dude. It's kind of insane how he became the most dangerous animatronic in this whole game. We also get some cool behind the scenes of the game's development and just some really awesome pictures of the animatronics. Yeah. And with that, that's about it. That was Those Nights at Freddy's. Overall, a very fun and scary FNAF game. It is a remake of Nixon's original back in 2015, but nonetheless, it is an awesome, just kind of homage to Nixon's game. So very well done. And that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys have enjoyed, please smash a like, and if you never want to miss out on a future upload, then please consider subscribing as well. On screen here is a video where I play every single FNAF game. Well, not every, but like over 120 games. So it's a long video, so if you want to go ahead and check that out, then it's right here for you. But anyways, until next time, take it easy and goodbye. So this first video is called Tunnel Vision, and it is based on Sister Location, but takes a twist on the whole, I guess, funtime animatronics and what they were used for. So without further ado, let's go straight into this video. The video begins with a quick advertisement of the Circus Baby world. This advertisement is very, I guess, eerie, as it has this 80s feel that honestly could be a real thing if you didn't know context for this game. Like, it looks very well made. And then after that, we get a saying called "as above, so below," and we get straight into the below section, as this saying has 2 meanings, the above and below. We then get to see Jason and Blake, who are the 2 workers assigned to go down into the depths of this pizza world and to deliver the animatronic. Jason is saying to Blake how he's pretty pissed off and has a reasonable crash out, as they're basically making them work down here for not only cheap, but the job itself is extremely exhausting. And not only that, but clearly Willie Afton has made these guys pretty much work for dirt cheap. Bro's crashing out.
It wouldn't be so bad if they at least let us use the elevator. Yeah, well, I'm not going against company policy because you decided to skip leg day, pal. Hey, screw you.
But yeah, Blake isn't really one to argue and just kind of says, "Look man, I'm doing the same thing as you, why can't we go down there and complete our job?" Jason soon eventually goes with Blake, not after having a little bit of back and forth, saying how this company is If these two knew what was going to await them, they would probably rethink their current situation. But enough foreshadowing aside, we then go down to this bunker-like area. The place is extremely confined, and I can't lie, if I was down here, I'd already be on edge, as this place looks like a test lab. But after that, Blake does a very normal thing and opens the door and enters the room. However, the maintenance panel begins to stuff up, and as soon as we know it, the place is kinda locked down. We then get a quick image of Funtime Foxy, who seems to awake, and all we can do now is pray that Blake makes it out okay. But anyways, the authorization system is holding Blake captive. However, Jason is going to go ahead and grab the key, which they can use to escape. However, it's not long before Blake realizes the severity of his situation, as he walks across the room, he finds a massive glass just shattered. This clearly means something is out of containment, and when Blake realizes this, it all is too late. Oh,
What the hell is that robot?
Yeah, you're fucking dead, bro. This is the beginning of the end, as Jason comes to go help his friend. However, the room is still locked, and it's clear that Jason is now only going to be able to fight for his own life. As we look down, we get to see some of Blake exit the door. And after that, we see Funtime Foxy finally get out of containment. Jason is forced to leave the place, leaving all that is behind. And just like Jason was saying before, he had to go up these massive flight of stairs, which was not what he was wanting to do. However, as he was running up the stairs, it appears that the stair falls, and then we fall to our death. Yeah, those two flight of stairs don't look so bad now, bro. Climb those. Oh, shit. However, we hadn't died. For some reason, we managed to survive, clenching for our lives. And that is all we see of this first VHS tape as the thing cuts off. This is the beginning of a containment breach. The whole pizzeria is alerted of the complete removal of Funtime Foxy from its area. However, the admin decides to override this access, which is clear that whoever is operating this place clearly is not afraid or upset that this has happened. We then cut to a time skip where a little girl is going to go ahead and enter the hide and seek section. The place is closed off, so clearly the company doesn't want anyone in the slide, but the little girl goes in the slide nonetheless. And with that, we get to see the absolutely confined space that is this tunnel. It's pretty much a average tunnel that you will see at like a theme park. It's just a massive hole. However, something is off about this tunnel as it appears to be too quiet. And as we know, when things are too quiet, usually that's a sign that something is there. And the further we get into the slide, eventually we find what that thing is. Two eyes can be seen, and with those eyes, we can then make out that this is Funtime Foxy. Funtime Foxy begins to talk to the girl and says,
Who are you?
I'm...
Oh, but I'm not a stranger. I know you, and you know me. You're my friend.
Foxy?
See? I'm not a stranger.
I'm sorry, you gave him the most terrifying voice.
Be out there on the stage.
No. Clearly, Funtime Foxy is approaching this as a friendly situation. However, we know from before that this is clearly a design for the thing to find and, well, take out certain people. And then Funtime Foxy acts up and begins to chase after the little girl. The girl makes it toward this spot where Funtime Foxy is continuing its pursuit, and for some reason a camera can be heard taking a picture. We then get to see these pictures and the girl is clearly very confused on what is happening, and as the girl goes toward the camera, it appears that this is exactly what the camera was designed for. As on the third image on the right side, we see Funtime Foxy lock eyes with the girl, and this, I can't lie, when I watched it, I was genuinely terrified. It's gonna be there. Yeah. Yeah, bro, that is terrifying. He's just in the corner, just... Oh! After this, it was too late, as Funtime Foxy would quickly and swiftly have the girl contained. This is the end of this area. However, there is more to this than meets the eye, As Funtime Foxy reports back to the mysterious scientist, it is clear that this was all part of a design, as the scientist is very happy with Funtime Foxy's performances inside the pizzeria. And then it's clear that this is a way to farm Remnant, as the scientist is clearly using this power to fuel whatever he's going to be doing next. And that is the end of Tunnel Vision. Overall, this video is genuinely disturbing as it shows a version of the pizzeria or the sister location that we haven't seen. And I really like the design and the voice that Funtime Foxy has. It makes him really eerie, and something about this video just makes me really on edge. But with that, we move on to our next video. So let's move on to our next video here called Abandoned Childhood. This FNAF VHS tape is quite short compared to our first video. However, it still has that really unsettling terror that that first video had. So with that, let's hop straight into it. The video begins with the main character rocking up in their car. We arrive very much excited to explore the abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Interestingly, if we look up the Freddy Fazbear Pizza, the location is actually that of the hoax location that used to be up a long time ago. Anyways, with that, we then make our way toward the door. For some reason, the door is actually unlocked, so we're easily able to open the door and enter inside. However, as we enter, we hear a thud behind us. The sound scares the main character, and it appears that whatever had this place unlocked also doesn't want us inside. But enough said, we move around and end up finding the Freddy Fazbear animatronics. We see Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica all in their unwithered states. I found this really cool, the fact that we get to see the unwithered characters in their full glory, not in their FNAF 2 states, but also not in their FNAF 1 states. But yeah, with that, we see all the animatronics. However, a key animatronic is found missing. This is Chica, and it's unsure where she really is. But we're not too stressed about this, as just seeing the animatronics makes us just a little bit more jolly, if one could say. After this point, we enter the back of the pizzeria, where we find some arcade cabinets, but most importantly, the missing children's poster. This poster has been kept up on the wall even after the place had closed down, and this poster is clearly a significant moment in this pizzeria's, well, existence. But after that, as we turn around, some lights begin to flicker.
There's absolutely no way there's still power in this place.
We look up and are very shocked to know that power still somehow runs in the building. By now, if I was this, well, person, I would have been long gone, as we've already seen the door shut very heavily behind us, and seeing lights begin to flicker is clearly something is going on in this building. We don't really see this as a problem, because instead of leaving, we actually go deeper into the establishment, all the way into the employees only section. Now, this section is pretty much where this main security guard is, but before entering the office room, we find what we call some food parts on the ground. Now, I don't have to be a medical scientist to say that that doesn't really look like food scrappings to me, but at last, we find our way toward the security room. As we open the room, something is off. Well, I think the first thing I'm gonna say is, why the f is Chica that menacing? She seems to be standing over the security guard with her eyes focused just purely on the guard himself. But as we open, clearly Chica is in the midst of doing something to the guard, something that was not for us to see. And then Chica slowly turns to us and stares us down.
Oh my god.
We also hear its mechanical insides and some like chicken sounds that accompanies the animatronic. But at that point, Chica's beak begins to clench and we have to exit this pizzeria as soon as possible. We run straight toward the main door. However, just like before, the main door doesn't budge and we seem to be locked inside. And as we turn around, Chica stands back, staring at us. And then to our right, Freddy appears, and their eyes begin to turn white. This is absolutely terrifying. If I was in this person's situation, I can't lie, I'm gonna try and throw some hands, but look, who am I to speak? I can't even throw hands with helpy for all I know. But anyways, we then try to break the window and eventually we actually manage to break open the door. We then barely escape, and that is the end of Abandoned Childhood. This video is short but straight to the point, and I really love how they show the pizzeria in its unsettling atmosphere. Like, it feels alive, but at the same time it feels like a chapter is closed and this place should be never opened again. But truly, this video is one of the more, I guess, tamer entries as we get later into this video. But with that, let's move on to our next video. Alright, moving on to our next video here. This one is called The TV Sang To Me, Nightmare Fredbear. Now, it's a shorter video, however, it still has that really raw and terrifying nature to it. So without further ado, let's hop straight into it. So the TV Sang To Me begins with a radio call. What is happening is there's a babysitter who is talking to a police officer explaining her current situation. She believes that someone is in the house with her and that the baby isn't safe. The dispatch officer is trying to understand where this woman is located, asking for the address. The woman is very distressed, asking if they could please just hurry toward her. The dispatch says that the officers are on her way, and the dispatch officer then says, could it be the owner of the house? The babysitter replies, no, I haven't seen them, but I can hear them moving around. She then adds on a very crucial piece of information. It could be an animal, I'm not sure. An animal, what would an animal be doing in a house? The dispatch officer asks the woman, how many children are you watching tonight? And she replies with just one, and that he's safe in his room behind me. The woman, being very distressed, starts to hear the sounds and they begin to go through the phone.
The unit is on its way, ma'am. Everything will be okay. Just stay on the line with me, okay, hon? Are you hiding anywhere right now? I think it's a bear. I can hear it. Okay, ma'am. There's no need to panic. Our officers are well trained with wild animals.
But this doesn't seem to be an animal. It seems to be something even darker. The dispatch officer says, ma'am, can you please stay on the phone? However, the babysitter is not speaking. She's clearly hiding. And then we hear the monster start to go closer. And the woman cries, don't come any closer. I've already called the police. However, after hearing this, the monster goes closer and then lets out a massive roar.
Ma'am, please respond. The officers at the front door. Please leave me alone. End of message.
And that is the last we hear of the babysitter, and then the phone cuts. We then get a really cryptic message saying the house woke up that night with an image that appears to be something going on fire. And after this, we see an animation of a quite cute bear just walking through this sunny place. The song is saying something about waking up and you don't have to worry. And then it continues to repeat this exact same thing. And it keeps repeating, you are living a dream, over and over and over again. Can't lie, this animation is super cute. However, there is a deeper, darker meaning to all of this. And what comes next is just disturbing. We are underneath a floorboard, and looking up, we see a massive yellow bear staring right back toward us. The bear has a bunch of stains all around it, and it looks lifeless, but at the same time full of, well, something. The bear stares and grins at us as we stare back at it in absolute disarray. The bear looks at us, seemingly wanting to eat us. However, when the sheriff department begins to knock on the door, the bear looks up, and it appears that the bear is not happy. It then begins to roar, and what happens next is quite strange. The floorboard begins to make itself, and this is very strange, I can't lie. It appears this bear has not only power in terms of physical dominance, but it can also shapeshift the area around it. We then cut to a police officer entering the house, and it looks up and sees a purple bunny staring back at the officer. The bunny seems pretty strange. I mean, if I was this officer and I saw this, I can't lie, I would genuinely just make a run for it. I am not f***ing with this. But anyways, the officer then requests for backup, and then looking at the bunny, it then begins to wave and starts to put its hands up, clearly cooperating with the officer. The police officer then says, turn around and walk towards my voice. And at that point, something strange happens. The Bunny is then pulled up toward the attic, and in a distorted voice it says, "He's making me." And then the video ends. I can't lie, this whole video was really something else. The visuals mixed with the story and the unsettling nature of this whole predicament is genuinely top tier. And when it comes to the visuals alone, I think this is by far the best I've seen in terms of the FNAF VHS horror space. I mean, these are genuinely breathtaking. And I can't wait to see where this VHS series goes next, as there's already other videos that this creator has made. So in another video I may cover those, but for now we shall see what comes next. But with that, let's move on to our next video. So moving on to the next video here, we have the horror attraction made by Baddington. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you have probably seen this video as it's quite a popular series. However, I really want to cover this as it's one of my favorite VHS tapes that have been made for the FNAF space. So with that all said, let's hop straight into the video. Enjoy. This video starts with the advertisement saying how there's a new Fazbear Fright attraction that's around. And with that, we, the main character, go on this ride. And already just seeing the quality of the video, like, this looks real. If you told me that this was real life, I would possibly believe you, which is insane. But the line itself is quite large. Clearly this is a popular attraction. Eventually we make it toward the front of the line, and we have our friends that are Jessica, Derek, and there's another person, but I forgot her name. I think it's Vanny. But yeah, we have a little predicament as the ride only can hold 3 people. So we, being the brave person that we are, say we are gonna go alone. Actually, Derek tells us to go alone, you know, being the great bro that he is. But anyways, with that said, we hop straight into the ride, and just going on this thing, yeah, this is crazy how it's even allowed to be up. Like if I was on this ride, I'd low-key shit myself, like genuinely. There's a lot of jump scares. There's also like missing children. There's like the faces of like basically disturbing stuff. Okay, I'm gonna keep it real. I like how they had Broken Bonnie singing London Bridge is Falling Down. If you don't know where that's from, it's from FNAF 2, the OG trailer. Come on, guys. We also have Chico, who is saying Baby Bird, and this is a reference to one of Baddington's other videos, which is equally as terrifying. But let's get into that another time. But yeah, I like how he referenced his other works in this video. Amazing stuff. We keep going on the ride and we see the missing children. I'm sorry, even if these are props, why are they on the ride? Like, because these might be props, they might not be props. We don't know. You know what I mean? Anyways, that all leads us to the 1987 portion of the ride, which has the toy animatronics. These things look just decrepit. I mean, have a look at these things. They are broken. You can see inside the endos, yeah, they look really roughed up. Yeah, they look really
Freaky.
Oh, she freaky. She the freakiest. But all of a sudden the ride stops working and the yellow light turns on. The phone dude is saying that this is possibly a error. It may be even a false alarm, so whoever's on the ride remain in your seats. So we do that. We wait the whole 8 minutes for this ride to go back on. However, George, the main character, is starting to wish that he begged Vanny to come with him, as he's possibly starting to be a little bit freaked out of this error. But I'm telling you, this is the least of his worries, as well as the ride will eventually resume. He goes into another section of the ride. George makes his way to the final section of the ride where the spring trap is, well, found. Then the ride goes left and goes down a weird like drop. So he goes, what is this? And as soon as he realizes, he goes straight down the hole. This then leads him straight back to the beginning of the ride. I can't lie, this is one of my biggest fears for some reason, having the ride or being trapped on a ride. I don't know why, but just being put on a ride multiple times in one go is a really crazy thought to think of. Because there was one time I was at a theme park, and I'm going to get into some story time here, and I was on a ride, and when I completed the ride, and this ride, by the way, was insane. It goes like upside down and everything. It's a pretty hectic ride. But after the ride, everyone's chair disengaged beside my one. I was just trapped there. And honestly, I was gonna go on another ride if it hadn't been for the guy double checking, which he was meant to do. And I remember having someone like point to me and say like, I'm a fucking loser or something, I don't know. But yeah, trust me, going on a ride twice, it's not fun. Or maybe for some people. Anyways, George is on the ride again, and this time everything seems the same. Nothing is right now out of the ordinary. George is a little confused how the ride is operating twice, and he's starting to think that this ride is a little bit weird. What's even stranger is the exact same spot we broke down before, we broke down again in. And George is a little bit, well, confused. However, he remains in his seating. And then the ride continues and we see the spring trap. Wait, it's not there this time. Well, guys, I think I know what's going on here. Something is moving and causing some, well, malfunctions to occur. Anyways, George goes down the slope again and he is magically teleported to the beginning of the ride for a third time. George is starting to freak out. I mean, he's been on the same ride now 3 times, and something is clearly up. And the animatronics are starting to go through different voice lines, and clearly this isn't part of the main ride. This is some, like, DLC shit. But as George is going through this third time, a weird puppet can be seen, telling George to turn back, and it's not too late. However, the ride continues, and George is placed right back to the spot he broke down those past 2 attempts. As the trolley stops, we see what appears to be a rabbit. The rabbit appears to go inside this room, and that's pretty much all we see of it. And immediately George gets out of the trolley and goes straight toward this room. George is able to open up the door. However, as he goes into the room, he appears to be placed right back at the beginning of the ride. Right now, George is extremely pissed off. He doesn't know if this is a really cruel prank placed upon him, or if this is something a lot more darker.
What the hell? Get me off the ride! It's not funny anymore! It's not funny anymore!
However, on this 4th ride, the trolley stops again at the exact same spot. George gets out of the trolley and places the camera down. He then starts contemplating the chances that this is perhaps a dream. He has been drinking this night and maybe all those drinks have finally caught up to him. And he stands there complexed and completely dazed, and honestly, it's a really grim situation to be in. As George is just staring off into the absolute abyss, he starts singing London Bridge is Falling Down, and if we look at the time code, it appears about 20 minutes have passed. However, as George is just staring off, he somehow catches the bunny staring back at him. And as George makes eye contact with the bunny then completely retreats into this locked off room. George is not around. He goes straight toward this room, and then we see the room for the first time. It is like a backstage room with all these like endoskeletons just placed across the room, and there's another door that leads to another place. However, as George goes into this second room, he is then transported straight back to the beginning of the ride. Now George is extremely pissed off. He starts begging and breaking animatronic endoskeletons. He creates an absolute frenzy, and I can't lie, this is the most valid crash out of 2026 if you ask me. However, George gets straight back onto the ride and eventually makes it back to the iconic spot. George begins to try and push the trolley with his bare hands, and this seems to make him very exhausted. For some reason, this time around, the lights of the place turn off, and George is forced to use his, well, night vision mode on his camera. Pretty handy if you don't say. He then makes out that the door that was locked before is opened again. And as George enters this room, he finds the bunny, this time trying to open the second door. And as George goes toward the bunny, it then falls backward, revealing an endoskeleton placed on its head. George is very confused, thinking, what are all these endoskeletons doing in this attraction? He hadn't actually noticed that there was a back room in this place. As George goes across, he then starts saying how he doesn't want these endoskeletons moving. I think this is a reference to Security Breach, and if you don't know in that game, if you don't look toward endoskeletons, they run toward you. Pretty terrifying stuff. But as George goes and continues to adventure this part of the, well, attraction, he finds some yellow and black tape. Clearly, whoever is operating this place doesn't want anyone inside this room. However, George, desperate for a way out, ignores this tape and proceeds into this boarded off room. We then get a classic FNAF 1 like checkerboard look, which is very nostalgic, and the place is described by George as absolutely freezing. George bravely walks toward this mist, and eventually he finds a door. In front of the door, it says Springtrap, and honestly, if I saw this, I know we don't have a way out and this might be the only way we can go, but f that, I'm not doing it. George, being more persistent than ever, decides to walk through this way, and eventually, that door which was closed before, opens. We then hear Vanessa finally speaking to George. George is very skeptical of this voice, as at first it may have been Vanessa, however the voice distorts, and eventually becomes very hostile. Oh shit, bro! What the fuck? Oh. It's trying to get through? Bro, what? Birthing noises? Oh, you have to be kidding me. It's giving birth to Springtrap! All in all, George barely escapes this predicament, with the massive Freddy Fazbear head nearly engulfing him whole. And then in a terrifying manner, the subtitles say giving birth sounds, and then Springtrap is formed out of this Freddy Fazbear head. Now it's time to leg it, as George looks the other way and runs. However, the door to get out is shut, so basically George has to punch this door until it eventually breaks through. Conveniently, as George opens this door, the ride, the trolley, ends up going toward him. So he gets on the trolley and tries to escape. However, the Springtrap entity chases behind him. George barely manages to evade Springtrap's attack, and now it's time to get out of this, well, attraction. The ride moves on, all the way until it reaches that exact same drop. However, this time it doesn't go to the front of the ride. In fact, it goes toward the ending. George is finally free. Now he's able to escape this attraction. However, as George begins to exit, we hear some sounds, and then the bunny appears, starting to groan and move toward him. George is freaked out, and trying to get back into the attraction to find some safety, he ends up finding a grisly fate, as one of the carts goes all the way around and ends George's life. This is the end of this animation. Overall, a fantastic rendition of FNAF 3 made by Baddington. This is by far one of my favorite VHS videos, as it encapsulates a horror that I relate to very well with my experience at that theme park. But not only that, it gives this more like ghostly feel to the FNAF 3, which I really love to see. And it's just a unique premise for a FNAF VHS tape in my opinion. So let's move on to our last tape for this video, and this one is called Paranormal Activity made by Spectre. Now this one is also a personal favorite of mine, which is why I'm putting it on this video, because I genuinely love these tapes so much that I thought I'd have to cover them. But yeah, with that said and done, let's hop straight into this terrifying video. We begin this tape with the main character, who I don't believe is given a name. Now, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria have given this paranormal investigator a chance to go inside the place and investigate some of the, well, crazy stuff that's been happening there. As we go ahead in our van, we give a quick little rundown on what to expect in this place. Some of the things that are listed is that there was a bunch of kids who reported in the restroom there was a weird like face looking at them in the mirror speaking cryptic languages. To add on to that, there's also been a bunch of instances where the animatronics have been moving around the restaurant during the night shift. And basically, there is some weird stuff happening at Freddy Fazbear's. But after this, we go ahead and grab our box, which has all of our equipment, and we make our way inside the building. Entering the building, the place is actually powered down, as due to the spirits, we have to make sure we can capture them, and with the power on, it may be harder to actually do this. I'm getting some serious phasmophobia vibes here, because not only that, but the equipment is just exactly like it's from the game. And I know the equipment is not just from the game, it's people actually have this equipment, but I just found that parallel pretty cool. Anyways, with the power off, we make our way toward the main stage, and seeing the animatronics was very disturbing, I must say. especially how they look in the dark. I mean, if I was this paranormal investigator, I would have left the building about 5 minutes ago, even before entering. But anyways, we place our crate down and pull out 2 items, the EMF reader and this, I guess, temperature thing. We then grab the reader and begin to go around the pizzeria looking for a signal. This signal would soon to come, as right on the main stage we would get a reading of EMF 5. This means that the spirit is right there, so we go ahead and start to open up the spirit box. The reason we do this is we're trying to get the spirit to actually speak to us, to try and uncover what's happening in this pizzeria. And with that all said and done with the spirit box down, we begin to try and talk with the spirit.
My name is Sean. Can you say my name back to me?
Sean.
Whoa, here we go. Okay, just so I can make sure that wasn't a coincidence, can you say my name again?
Sean.
Very soon we start hearing a response, and we begin to uncover this spirit's name. The spirit is named Susie. We then ask it more direct questions like, how did you get murdered? And that is where we uncover that a bunny was responsible for this incident. And as we begin to uncover more of the truth, we ask Susie, does that mean this person was dressed like a bunny? Where Susie replies, yes. After that discovery, we turn off the spirit box, absolutely shocked at what we've just uncovered. We then check our camera if we recorded all that, because this can be used for the authorities to track the true culprit that was responsible for this. So we then check the camera and we go ahead and turn back on the spirit box to try and communicate more with the spirit. We then again ask if there are any spirits still in the room with me, please make your presence known. The presence we would get is different to what we got before, because as we are walking around the room, a chair can be heard being pulled out. This was very unnerving even watching this, as the atmosphere mixed with the uncertainty of what these spirits are capable of makes this video very disturbing. And not only that, our main character seems to have this calm, like really cool personality that really makes the situation a lot more, I guess, not as terrifying as it would be if you weren't an experienced paranormal investigator. We would then hear the spirit talk with us and it would say off. We are unsure on what off means, so we ask, do you want the flashlight off? Which it responds by turning it off. It then responds again, off, and we are very confused. However, it then says noise, and with that we go ahead and turn off the spirit box, which was making quite a really annoying sound, I must say. But with that, we then ask the spirit, can we have a conversation with you? We then turn on our flashlight and we catch a really disturbing glimpse. A shadowy thing can be found on the arcade area of the building and we can barely make out a silhouette of a person. We start freaking out and heading toward the arcade to, I guess, investigate whatever this was. If I was this person, I would have left the building by now. I would not have stuck around for that, I can't lie. So there was a head that was clearly sticking out, so as we go ahead and check the arcade, we find no clue where the, well, spirit is. That is until we make our way toward the restroom, and the door begins to slowly open. When this happens, it then shuts, and we freak out because clearly whatever the spirit is doesn't want us moving toward this location. The main character says how he would have actually went inside the restroom to see where the spirit is, and I can't lie, I would not be following a spirit. I don't think this is a good idea, but I mean, as I said before, this is a paranormal investigator. He's possibly used to this kind of work. We then say how we may rewatch the footage to get a better look at whatever it was, and then we actually do so. The main character then says how he sees the entity. By rewatching the tape, we can clearly make out that the entity is there staring at us at the arcade. We then decide to turn back on the spirit box, as it's been a while since we've actually used it. As this happens, we hear a strange giggle. We then turn around and see a young child just giggling.
If not, then I'm probably gonna call it quits for tonight. Holy shit.
Oh, that was something.
That's gotta be.
This honestly kind of freaked me out. I mean, imagine being in this guy's spot, right? You're hearing all these like anomalies, all these spirits, and you're just forced to kind of investigate further. After that, we follow the little child who is at the back of the pizzeria. We venture all the way back here, and we do end up finding where Freddy actually is, just sitting at the back of this spot. We're a little bit concerned why Freddy would be placed here, but enough of that. We then go ahead and set up the Ovulus, which is apparently the big boy when it comes to spiritual speaking. This Ovulus device is very good at its job, as we put it down, we immediately get a response from Freddy. We ask Freddy for its name, and it replies, Gabriel. We then start asking similar questions to what we asked Chica, saying, how did you get here and why are you possessing animatronics? Gabriel says that he was trapped in this Freddy Fazbear costume, so we can deduct that these kids were stuffed inside the suits. With that troubling understanding, we still ask Gabriel who did it, who was responsible for the murder. Gabriel responds with him, and we are now confused as f***. We just continue to ask him just some borderline questions, saying, did you see the face, you know, yada yada yada, trying to get responses from Freddy. However, this would all come to a standstill, because as we are asking Freddy more questions, Freddy responds, get out. This was extremely disturbing. Freddy is very angry, and then...
Have I said something to upset?
Get out, bro.
What the f? Why did this just go up?
What the f?
Better get out, bro.
Whoa, 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 what the f? Holy shit!
Oh. Oh.
Come on, come on, come on!
What just happened, I can't lie, is super insane. So let's go through what potentially would have happened at the end of this video. What I believe what would have happened is, as Freddy says to get out, he would have detected William Afton's presence inside the building. And to try and save the investigator from being one of Afton's victims, he then tries to chase the investigator out. This does work, however, William Afton was already a step ahead and managed to use his shotgun to take out the investigator's life. Overall, it's a pretty disturbing video and by far one of the best investigating videos that I've seen in the FNAF VHS space. And it definitely has a soft spot for me, as I really love these like unnerving but like at the same time realistic situations that could happen in the FNAF universe. So off the bat, we have the game called Fazbear Eternal Nights. It is a Roblox experience, but fellas, let me just explain to you just the sheer terror we're about to subdue ourselves to. Me and 4 other of my mates hopped into this game, and let's just say it's gonna be a blast. The game begins with this really cool cutscene of the characters inside a car as they talk about if they should head toward this cool location. Not much is known about it, they just say, oh, it's gonna be fun, probably not the best mindset, but we end up arriving at the pizzeria, and from here, things are already pretty mysterious. The whole building is just powered off, and the only thing that we can grab is this flashlight. Just straight off the bat, the atmosphere alone, just this really grim, and just, you can tell this place hasn't been touched in potentially years. Well, beside the Halloween decorations, which, let's be honest here, maybe, I don't know, one of the animatronics thought, hey, let me go around the place and add these, or maybe this was the last thing the place ever got before it was completely abandoned. There's also these like chests that are around the building, which you can go ahead and, well, you can't actually open them, you're going to need bolt cutters or pliers, I think it is. These chests give you coins, which is this game's main currency, and the currency is only used at the beginning of the night to grab additional items. But for now, they're not really too useful, and to be honest, they don't really get useful to a lot later on. So our main objective was to find the power room, and specifically to rearrange the fuse items. So the building itself is put into 3 different areas. The first area is the security room. The next area is the, I guess, loading docks, or I'm gonna call it the fuse area. And the last being the main stage. So to split the map up, there's basically 3 different spots you can go to. we need to go toward the loading docks or the power fuse room. When we are here, we have to go ahead and turn off the power and then place the fuse in. If you have the power on and have the fuse inside the box, you can actually get hit with an electric shock, so don't do that unless you're me, because I'm just really smart when it comes to FNAF games. But anyways, as we turn on the power, this is when the whole building just becomes alive, and already you can tell things are gonna be quite not what we expect. We then head back to the security room, and from here the night begins. We're already starting to shit our pants because we have no idea what to expect, and specifically we know that animatronics are going to activate, just we don't know when they're going to do this. Bro, was it this one? Was it this one? Was it this one?
No, it was a different one. It was a different one.
Bonnie's moving around. Bonnie's moving.
Oh! George! The main goal was to go toward the puppet's corner or the prize counter to go ahead and wind up the music box. Interestingly, you can do this either physically at the actual place or you can do it on the cameras. We opted to go toward the puppets area, and for some reason we thought this was more optimal than doing it on the cameras. So it was me and one of my mates that decided to be the brave soldiers to go toward this prize counter, because by now we started to hear some footsteps, and this was already alarming until we saw something with red eyes come our way. This was when we completely went, what the f***? So as soon as we saw this red-eyed entity, we immediately just bolted. As Bonnie approached, I decided to leg it because at this point, Bonnie was wrapping around and I just went, I'm just gonna run. And I just went straight toward the locker, and I thought I was all safe because, you know, I'm in the locker, it can't see me, but it decided to actually begin to pull the locker. So it was a tug of war against Bonnie, which was, mind you, absolutely terrifying. I managed to scrape barely. The whole thing was completely insane, but from here we managed to go through the rest of the night, mind you, with the power off, because in this game randomly your power can just deactivate and then you have to go ahead and find the 3 fuses across the pizzeria. We did not manage to find all 3 fuse items, but we did manage to scrape through the night, so we'll count this as a win. The night 1 showed us how terrifying the game was going to be, but now we would move into night 2. However, we also had a cutscene at the end of the night, which I kind of went past. This is simply just us trying to leave the pizzeria. However, Golden Freddy or someone decides to block the entrance and then jump scares us. This isn't the end of the night. We end up managing to wake up. During this next cutscene, we have a vision of us in the FNAF 4 building. Bro, is this FNAF 4? I can't lie, this jump scare actually made me and one of my mates jump, so yeah, that happened. From here, it was time to go ahead and find out how to get through night 2. We also found the old animatronics, being the toy ones, which are actually the ones that I deactivated inside of this game. Kind of like the opposite of FNAF 2, so I thought that was pretty cool. But from here, it was pretty much time to find out how to get through this second night. And our main goal was to kind of run around and make sure the puppet was wound. A pretty interesting tactic, but it was mainly just find as many items as we could. This mindset was really not the best because we had no way of knowing where animatronics were. One player was at the camera room checking for every animatronic and keeping the puppet wound, and the other 4 were kind of running around the pizzeria and just being headless chooks. I was one of the players that were running around, and let's just say we were coming into contact with animatronics very often. In fact, there was many moments where we were simply trying to not scream as we could hear heavy thuds outside of many rooms. We were pinned right outside of the toilets, and there seemed to be no way of escaping. There is a vent system, but unfortunately for us, the vent only goes toward both of the toilets, or the restrooms I should say. So there was no physical way of us escaping. What happened next was genuinely disturbing. Go, just go. Get in the vent.
What happened?
Bro, the vents would be the last place we would ever see, as we basically had nowhere else to go. Foxy pinned us from one of the vents and Bonnie was coming up from the other. So the only thing that we could do was face, well, the end. Somehow one of my other mates managed to survive, and he was our last hope. Somehow, just by the slimmest of margins, we would get through night 2. The whole night I was carrying a screwdriver, which meant I could go through vents, but this didn't really help, as by now, every animatronic was starting to come out beside Freddy himself. So with that, we're going to move into night 3, which is where things are going to get a little bit more interesting. I didn't actually mention how the animatronics work, so I'm going to quickly go through that now. Bonnie is deaf, so if you don't make sound, it won't find you. Chica can apparently see you very well, and if you are crouched, she can actually sense you more if you're crouched for a prolonged period of time. And Foxy will basically, well, he just needs flashlight and he goes away, just like in FNAF 2. All in all, they're pretty interesting to deal with, and they all have unique mechanics, but mainly they just free roam, and if they see you, you have to run. There's also a cupcake, which I don't think we've actually seen yet, but if I remember, this thing just kind of manages to spawn wherever it wants to, and with the cupcake, if you go near it, it's like a proximity thing. It just powers on and runs after you, or I should say hops after you. The cupcake can't also jump scare you. It can actually bite you and leave you barely alive. But yeah, some very interesting mechanics, and for night 3, we're going to have the same kind of goal here to pretty much survive for as long as possible. Again, we would have one teammate at the security room checking on all the animatronics, and the other 4 roaming around the pizzeria looking for any fuses or just in general checking out for animatronics. Our game plan was swift: just keep the puppet's music box up and try not to die. This night would be a pretty chaotic one, as there was many instances where we saw animatronics and we had to bolt for it.
It's in the puppets area.
The fuse? Okay.
I think it always spawns there.
One of them is there. I don't know which one it is. You can put the fuse in any single one. Middle one is for the employee zone.
And for some reason, the cupcake would keep spawning at the exact same spot, so it was pretty confusing on how we were going to deal with this thing. The first attempt of night 3 ended in pretty much disaster, as we would all pretty much meet our demise in our own separate ways. Our last teammate would make his way toward one of the boarded off rooms, and from here, they would just manage to sit in the corner until eventually the puppet would jump out of its box. So we attempted this night again, but this time we found a secret little Easter egg. If you find this toy Freddy head and you press E on it to interact, it does some random voice lines. Just listen for yourself.
Eduardo on the floor. Are we? Oh.
So I'm not too sure what this even means, but it's pretty cool. This time we were a little bit more cautious on where we were moving in the pizzeria, trying to avoid the animatronics as much as possible. It's just at this rate, everything's just, all the animatronics are basically surrounding the main stage. This is where they love to go. And this is the room that is mostly where we have to go to grab not only the fuses but to wind the music box. So I did find myself a fuse, so I was like, let me go help out everyone, let me go back to the fuse room. And as I decide to do this, I hear Withered Bonnie activate, and in about 2 seconds I saw Withered Bonnie and my head was eaten in that same instance. Everyone else had been jump scared except for one of my mates. They decided to camp right at the most dangerous spot in the whole game, this being the loading docks. Somehow, and I don't know how, they barely managed to survive. I thought the puppet would have activated by now, but before I got jump scared, I did wind the music box, and this must have been the exact thing that made the puppet go away. But yeah, that was it for night 3, and now we had to go through night 4. This night strangely does not have a cutscene, so we just hop straight into the night. Things by now are getting quite heated, and all the animatronics are out to get us. There wasn't really much more we could do besides just keep running and try to wind the music box as much as possible. This night, I did find myself a pair of bolt cutters, which is great, but I could only grab coins with the bolt cutters. And yes, there is drilling happening in my house right now, so if you hear drilling, that's why. But anyways, that wasn't really going to help me, as about 2 seconds after this, I got jump scared by it with a chica.
George, are you dead?
Everyone else was gone, except one of my teammates. And again, in strange fashion, they managed to somehow get through the night. And we clearly were doing pretty good. We managed to get to night 5, and sure, things were hard. The animatronics were quicker, more alert, but we managed to keep ourselves alive by just doing the music box pretty much. But night 5 was not going to be easy, as already at the beginning of the night, Golden Freddy decides, hey, I'm going to shut off the power. This already puts a twist on night 5, as now we already have to look for the fuses, and I don't think we were ready for the sheer mayhem this night would bring, as Golden Freddy would be a new animatronic, and how Golden Freddy works is it will float around the pizzeria until it spots you, and at that rate you have to try and run as far as you can, because Golden Freddy will just fly towards you and jump scare you within an instant. It was quite clear that Golden Freddy was going to be the main boss of the night, and the only way we could really complete this is by simply avoiding him at all costs. So, future tracking guy here, basically night 5 is a lot different to what I first expected. So it's been about a week since I've played Eternal Night, and I did decide to hop back in it, although this time by myself, and let's go through all the things that I got wrong with Golden Freddy. First and foremost, don't run away from Golden Freddy. Why don't you do this? Well, Golden Freddy, if you spot him, will stand there and float like a silly person. If you stare at his face, this will make him pause. This is what you want, as if you stare toward his face and you have to have the cursor on his head, then this will eventually make him disappear. There's another thing that Golden Freddy can do, and this is when he sits down. If Golden Freddy is sitting down like an unk, all you have to do is make sure you go the complete other way. This is where I guess I was kind of right. Yes, if he's sitting down, run the other way, because if you stare at him whilst he's sitting down, then he will jump scare you. The question now is, how am I going to beat this night? There's a few things I will have to do. First of all, I will have to immediately go ahead and try find all fuses. This was my first plan of attack, as if I had all the fuses, this gave me the best chance of completing the night. The only thing we need to keep basically on is the front stage. The reason why I want to keep the music box wound is, you can probably guess, the marionette. We have to keep the marionette wound at all times. So there's either two ways I can do this. One is I go ahead and put the power toward the front stage and the office area. This will then allow me to go toward the office and use the monitors. I can then wind the music box from the monitor and check the hallways for the animatronics. This strat was pretty good. It meant that I could survive without being detected, as in this game, being detected is the worst thing that can possibly happen. However, there was only one caveat to this method, and that is when the power runs out. Your power is not infinite. No. When that thing runs out, there's nothing you can do. So either have a plan to escape the office or already have the fuses ready to go. This was the only downside to this method. As I was playing on one random attempt, I was just chilling and I saw Freddy Fazbear. I then went straight back toward my office and shut the door immediately on him. However, what happened next would scar me for the rest of my days. Whoa! Oh my god! Shit. Your eyes do not deceive you. Freddy Fazbear had just grabbed the door and opened it. I've never seen an animatronic ever grab the door and open it before, except technically in this Chuck E. Cheese fan game. But still, I was shocked that he was even able to do this. My mic wasn't even on me. I had my mic literally on the other side of the room, and you can hear my faint, absolute distraught voice just going through the mic. I then decided, hey, I need to have some teammates again. So I asked my mates to come and help me. Fortunately, 2 of my mates were online because it's school holidays and no one seems to have anything else to do except play Roblox FNAF games. But anyways, we hop on this Eternal Nights game, and our goal was to complete night 5 at all costs. The goal was basically the same. Get the 2 fuses, get it toward the front room and the office area, and keep the music box wound. With 2 extra players, it does make our life a lot easier, as now if I get jump scared, it's not the end of the game. However, the main premise stays the same. You have to keep alert, because if one thing goes wrong, you're kind of screwed. And when you put 3 absolute idiots into a Roblox FNAF game, then bad things are gonna happen. Get back! Get back! Push! Run! No! He's Foxy. Oh, he's after me. I don't think
I'm not going to. He's right behind you!
Run! It's Foxy! It's Foxy!
No, actually, run. That's Foxy.
Run! Get to the music box. Get to the music box. Get to the music box.
Go. Oh my god, Freddy and Cheetah!
There's 6 of them!
Wind it! Quickly! He's good. They got away.
Oh my gosh, it's Freddy.
Yeah, it's Freddy. Got a Freddy again, same spot.
Or stare at his head. Oh my gosh, wait.
What? He's getting pushed close.
Run, find a hiding spot. Can't lie, it was pretty fun, but at the same time, what is going on? This game is absolutely absurd. However, on one of these attempts, we managed to get to 4 AM, and surprisingly, we managed to go through 2 rotations of the power, which means we got the power on once, and we got the power on again. That means the puppet's music box is wound, and all we have to do is survive till 6 AM. However, this was harder said than done, because every single animatronic decided to go straight toward the office, and this meant we were pretty much going to lose. I got jump scared trying to hide in one of the hiding spots, and my other 2 teammates were also pretty screwed. One managed to hide, the other got jump scared. Somehow my other mate didn't use his life yet, I already had used this, so they managed to get a quick revive, and this meant we still had 2 players at 4:30 AM. Time was ticking, but the nerves were starting to set in. Could they beat the night, or would the night beat them? That sounds really messed up. By managing to just hide from the animatronics, we barely got to 6 AM, and the celebration was insane. As we complete the game, we get a cutscene. It seems that the main character tries to escape the pizzeria. However, we get captured, and Freddy sends us straight toward the room where I guess all the other people go to. And at this point, our fate was sealed. So this next game, and first of all, I know you're possibly confused. Yes, it does say hello neighbor, but I can assure you it's kinda like FNAF. We'll get into that in a second. But yes, we are next playing Hello Neighbor, and what better way to play Hello Neighbor than by using an absolutely insane mod. This is the Fast Fredbear mod, which I'm sure you have heard of because it's literally been everywhere. As we hop into our game, we begin just outside the neighbor's house, or we'll call him Fredbear. Fredbear is massive, right? You can just see him next to the window staring at the player. Oh my god! Oh, what the f— Oh shit. There's an interesting mechanic where you can actually call out for Fredbear's name, although I wouldn't recommend this as it's basically a guaranteed death sentence. The first goal was to wrap around Fredbear's house to look for any entries to get in. I found an entry at one of the areas here, and this was my main way of entering the house. Straight away I would hear a really strange sound as if something was stuck. To my dismay, Fredbear was stuck at the front door, and as soon as I walked near him, he decided to get off the door and attack me. The thing about Fredbear is he runs at a speed just unseen. I'm not even slowing down the footage, you can just see there's not much time for you to react once he locks onto you. So safe to say we're going to have an absolute blast with this thing. My second attempt was me trying to get deeper within the house looking for any objects to find a way in. Unfortunately, I would not find anything, and this was well, it wasn't too good. And I managed to get myself locked in the bathroom with Fredbear just outside the room. This time I looked more, I guess, in the exterior of the house, and I did find a really strange, object just outside the front door. I then found out that you can actually enter the top of the house, and this would be my next area to go to. Using the crates which we can find at the back of the house, we would able to climb this thing and manage to get toward the roof. Although there was a lot of times where Fredbear would see me and then jump up and get me from the top of this thing. Safe to say, Fredbear could literally do anything. He can fly, he can jump, he can run. He's just a pure monster in this game. Interestingly, as I got jump scared, I was transported into another dimension. I'm not even sure what I was looking at, but it seemed that the neighbor had some backstory here, and obviously this game is quite old, and I haven't actually played Hello Neighbor, like the game version. I've played the prototypes, I never played the official game, so I didn't know what was going on, but I just kind of continued my way trying to enter the neighbor's house. But Fredbear would make my time absolutely just uncomfortable, as the way it worked is just he would just go outside, check for 1 second, see me, and then I would die in the second he saw me. So as being as sneaky as possible, I managed to make some progress. I managed to get toward the roof and I found some keys. All in all, I think Fredbear may have been stuck during this period of gameplay, but I'm not too sure. I managed to grab 2 keys from this boarded off room, which I then used to make it toward the other rooms in the house. And I managed to grab a new item, being this magnet, which I could basically have as a tool. However, I believe that Fredbear was still, well, running around the house, so I had to be very careful as of this moment. I did manage to grab myself a spanner and a shovel and a crowbar. All these tools would give me the exact thing I would need to get toward the basement. Ultimately though, Fredbear would still be active, and I would find this out the hard way. As I tried using the glue to slow him down, this didn't even impact him the slightest, as I believe Fredbear doesn't even run and work as the usual neighbor would. Oh yeah, I'm dead. Oh my god! Because Fredbear just ran past the glue and tackled me like a AFL, or if you're from America, an NFL player. A couple of jump scares later, I was very clear that I had to get toward the basement sooner than later, because it had been a solid 30 minutes and I have not even once entered the basement. I managed to get the final key, being the red one, and I did this by getting toward the top of the house using this back door, and this was the final tool I needed. After entering the basement, we had now successfully evaded Fredbear. Although I thought, as Fredbear would make it down toward the basement and would be the next threat we would have to deal with. This basement level is even more confusing, as there's a lot of boarded off rooms and Fredbear now glows. So that's great. Thing about the basement is you're trying to get toward this area and switch the power off. You're then basically having to go toward the other area of the basement and then run through here and turn on the generator. However, Fredbear is also active and can go ahead and switch off this tool whenever he wants. This meaning you have to pretty much turn off the tool, make it toward the generator as quickly as possible. As if you're not quick enough, Fredbear will simply go toward the thing, switch it on, and you would be electrocuted. So it was very important to keep as much space from Fredbear as possible, as we are now in this very enclosed space. So if we make any mistake, if we make too much sound, then we're going to attract Fredbear, therefore we're not going to survive. The thing that I would do is I would keep to as many rooms as possible, not trying to get toward the hallways, which is where Fredbear loves to roam. And in doing that, I did manage to go ahead and find a path toward the generator box that was quickest. That means I could turn off the generator power, go straight there, and then turn it on again. This would override this door, allowing us to finally escape the grasp of Fredbear. Although this newly found freedom was temporary, as the neighbor would appear and chase us down this very tight maze. For some reason it wasn't Fredbear, and I assume this was if Fredbear was in this section we would die every single time, as Fredbear's speed is absolutely 10 times quicker than the player, so I'm assuming that's why they chose to get rid of Fredbear. But after that, we managed to get to Act 2, and I think that puts an end toward our Hello Neighbor run. And with that, those are all the games for this video. If you guys have enjoyed the video, then smash a like. And if you are brand new here and never want to miss out on a future upload, then please consider subscribing as well. On screen here, I have a 9-hour supercut of basically 60 plus FNAF games, so if you enjoyed this video, then I'd highly recommend that one as well. But anyways, until next time, take it easy, and goodbye.